What's up, guys? Welcome to the live streams. Got a very special live stream tonight. So basically, I've been wanting to do a live stream for a while, or even a video about this topic, which is ripping discs versus ripping Kaleidescape, which is doing Kaleidescape or playing Kaleidescape movies, and what the pros and cons of each are, why you'd maybe want to go with a Kaleidescape over something like setting up your own server versus just, you know, going and just doing it all manually. And there's so many things that we could touch on with this topic. Now, as someone who's only ever done their own stuff, like I've ripped my own discs, set up my own Plex server, stuff like that, I only have my foot in one camp. So I wanted to bring on someone else, and I actually been talking to Jeremy from Techthusiasm for a while, and he actually has his feet in both camps. So he has a Kaleidescape, but he also rips his own physical media and sets up his own servers and stuff like that. So I figured it'd be great to bring him in. So everybody, welcome Techthusiasm, Mr. Jeremy, to the stream.
Hi, folks. So
how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing awesome. Feeling great.
Oh, yeah. So for those who don't know or familiar with his channel, he's been kind of blowing up. How many videos do you have uploaded at this point?
I don't know, probably 300, I think.
Yeah. So he
in a little over a year, yeah.
Yeah, so it just kind of, you started this kind of on a whim. You just wanted to talk about your passion for home theater and stuff, right? And you just said, you know,
Yeah.
I'm just going to post stuff as much as I can.
Yeah, during the COVID times, I was communicating with some companies and getting active, talking to some folks around the home theater industry, and then early last spring, thinking about a way to do something a little more organized for myself in the space. Right. And I've been doing home theater for 20 years. I built my own space and all this stuff, and figured, I could probably make some interesting content that could help some people, make it vloggy, share the experience of home theater and all that. And yeah, it's been a really interesting year and a half.
This, so for all of us, I mean, the whole COVID stuff is, no comment there. We've had the past year or so, my wife and I've just had things happen, not COVID related, but with everything.
Oh yeah, life is way different today than I could have conceived it.
Yeah.
2.5 years ago.
We're doing good. We're good spirits, all that stuff. And, we bought a house, so that's super awesome. So we got a roof over our head, and we get to, talk about this stuff on the channel.
This topic is, we were chatting in the background leading up to this. Like I could do 18 hours on this topic, because I've been in and out of many solutions and many points of view, and I'm pretty vocal about how I feel about these things too, around various forms. I was just in some debate with some folks in the Kaleidescape owners thread on ABS today about this very topic. So yeah.
Well, I thought it would be cool, and you and I have actually talked about doing stuff for like live streams for a bit now.
Yep.
Like we kind of connected through a mutual friend who I'll bring on in a moment. But we wanted to basically just do maybe start with something like a bi-weekly live stream where we just talk about different topics. Yep. And we just go over, whatever we want, because it's all home theater related, right? Yep. So we might talk about some gaming, because I know Jeremy wants to eventually get back into some PC gaming when he has time. But what I like about this is I'm on the relatively low end of the spectrum compared to Jeremy and the next guest who I'll introduce. So you guys know my home theater mainly is probably $10,000 to $11,000 total. And Jeremy's is a bit more than that. And then our final guest, I should say, doesn't really need an introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. I've known the guy for a long time, longer than I care to admit, but he is super awesome. He actually hosts the Fun Waste of Time podcast. Taurus, welcome to the live stream, buddy.
What is happening, guys? Appreciate you having me on. It's fantastic being here.
Thank you for indulging in our debate here. I don't want to say it's a debate. We're just talking about different stuff, right?
We're just talking shop about the things we enjoy, just like we do on our podcast.
Right. And it's all we're all opinion based, and we all love what we love, right? And
Absolutely.
no like ill will towards anything. Hey, I want to get that out of the way first. It's like we're not
Oh, yeah.
here to like rag on anybody's preference. That's not what this is about. I really was just curious, as someone who has never had a Kaleidescape. I've experienced it at Cedia, but I have experience setting up my own Plex server and stuff like that. But like how that compares to the Kaleidescape experience. And Taurus, I know that I mean, we've known each other for a while. You don't do any physical media at all. You're pretty much 100% Kaleidescape. Is that correct?
I am going on a couple of years now, actually. I've had my Kaleidescape for about 2 years or so, right around the time COVID started. And at that point, I just dropped physical media altogether. And it's been a fantastic thing, having friends over at the house and not having to stand in front of my Blu-ray player and put this disc in to show them this scene and then put the next disc in, and taking time to do all of that. It's just been seamless. And we'll get into, I'm sure, the demo scripts and some of the things that you can get into with Kaleidescape as the stream goes on. But it's just, for me, been a fantastic experience.
I mean, that's awesome. You and I've talked about the demo scripts quite a bit, and that's something we'll definitely touch on at some point in the live stream, because I love having people over and showing them clips and demos and stuff. But I haven't found a way within Plex or Kodi to just play them consecutively. You can't set in and out points within the actual software. You have to do that all manually on your PC by ripping specific time codes. So it's a little more involved. But yeah, so we're just going to kick things off here in a moment. I just want to say hi to everybody in the live stream. And Juan is here. Said, "Hey, Brad, what's up, man? What's up? How you doing?" Juan's a supporter of mine. He watches a lot of my content, comments a lot. So Juan, thanks for being here. We have 8760 Oprah Winfrey. I wonder if it's the actual Oprah. Could be.
If he was, he wouldn't be making that comment.
Right. True. True.
Right.
Which K was
right?
cheaper? Yeah. Yeah. I think if you're Oprah Winfrey.
Everybody in the live stream, look under your chairs.
All of us.
Look under your chairs, everyone, because
there's not a Kaleidescape.
There's not anything. I mean, I don't know what's under your chairs. Let's see. Juan also says, "What's up, Jeremy?" So he is here to support us.
We should point out we're simulcasting to both Brad's channel and mine. So through the power of StreamYard, pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
so
gonna be kind of weird.
Interleave comments. Yep.
Yeah, that's gonna be kind of weird when they watch this video, the live stream replay on your channel, and I open it up. So they're gonna be like, "Who's this bald guy?" Youth Man says, "What's up, fellas?" Look at that. Right, you're getting there. So what's up, fellas? Your daughter's cheer comp. We'll have to listen to the replay.
Awesome.
That's unacceptable. It's unacceptable, Michael. But well, we'll give you a shout out anyway. Thank you. Youth Man is awesome. He's been a massive supporter of mine and helping me basically elevate my channel and kind of what it is today, and just keeps pushing me to put out content and do better and make some industry contacts. So yeah, him and I are really good friends as well. So let's see. So you guys want to just jump right in? What do you think?
Yep.
Let's do it.
I do want to mention this is not required whatsoever. If you're watching on my channel or on Jeremy's channel, super chats are available. So if you want to support the channel in any way, throw a couple bucks. You don't have to. It's not required at all, but it's much appreciated. So thank you guys. Just want to mention that. So basically, I got my notes over here, so I apologize. I'm going to keep looking over here. I got two monitors. But basically, we're going to go over. It's going to be kind of a loose agenda. We're not going to be just, hammering points over and over. We're just going to kind of talk about things. And I really wanted to start with what I'm familiar with, and that's ripping your own discs. Now, I have experience with it, but I kind of want to hear what Jeremy's experience with that ripping discs is, and maybe some issues that he's faced throughout points with, I have some issues of my own that I'll touch on after you go over yours.
Yeah. So I've got a long history of doing that stuff, all the way back to 2007, the original, or the PlayStation 3, right? Ripping DVDs to VOB files and playing them over a network with the network player of the PlayStation 3, and then onward into Blu-rays and so on. So I spent a lot of time in different iterations of building DIY servers, ripping to re-encoding things into MP4s and ripping to MKVs and starting my ripping process in my libraries over a bunch of times. I've used the whole gamut of the different streamers and players and servers and so on. I had a big 12-bay Synology loaded up with content, and I kind of just had my fill of it back around 2018-ish, because there's so many pitfalls. I think a lot of people like love the idea of ripping so much, find entertainment in it, and it's fun organizing things and setting stuff up. I'm a alphabetize all my stuff on the shelf kind of guy, so I like having my hands on a collection and setting up and organizing it and all that. But the time intensity and the other failure modes and stuff that go along with it, I was spending a lot of my evenings like kind of feeding this through and managing servers and stuff, and I just got fed up with it. Like, I don't have the time to do this anymore. And I had been eyeing Kaleidescape for a while, so I bought my first K player at the end of 2018, and I jettisoned my DIY setup and basically used Kaleidescape as my input number one in the theater. Since in this last year, I've gone a little bit more back into doing some physical media ripping, and that largely to serve the channel, because I really wanted to make content about it. And I put up a bunch of videos about like using Make MKV and the process of it, how to do it, some of the pitfalls and the challenges and all that, making sure you get the right tracks and how to interpret the playlists off your disc and dealing with subtitles and forced subtitles. And I'll contend that a lot of people with DIY ripped physical media servers out there have wrong content on their server, at least in some percentage of their content, and don't even realize it. You're missing subtitles. You ripped a movie that you probably haven't watched yet, and when you sit down to watch it, it's not going to make any sense because you got the wrong playlist and everything's going to be in the wrong order. Like all that stuff is out there. But so I upgraded my Synology this year I from a 2-bay backup to like an 8-bay, and I dropped a couple drives in it, and I started feeling a pull again to doing it a little bit more, again, out of the channel, but because I like the collection side of it. I like the hands-on element of it. But I finally come to the realization again that like, no, it's like this isn't the long-term solution. I think for me, Kaleidescape, it has too many virtues for me. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of really good points and issues that I still face. The funny thing is, you mentioned subtitles. I was actually watching a movie earlier today, and some movies have non-English speaking parts that need subtitles. Well, if you don't know, like most of the movies, I'd probably say, I don't want to say most, maybe 50% of movies don't have that hard-coded subtitles within the actual movie itself. It's in a subtitle file. Well, the problem is, if you don't know which subtitle file it is and they're not correctly labeled, or the studio, nothing is you basically have to guess, because you're either going to turn on subtitles for everything, or you're going to have to start going through and just like, okay, let me play this section over again. And that actually is a barrier when my wife and I just want to sit down and watch a movie. Right. Like she's really awesome in that, like, I'll stop a movie sometimes just because, setting on the TV's wrong, or wait a minute, this audio doesn't sound right, or it's choppy or something. So she's really graceful with that, but it does kind of ruin the experience for me. So it always, like when I watch a movie, I kind of don't want to think about everything that might go wrong with the Plex server in the middle of a movie, just kind of crapping. I've had that happen numerous times using an NVIDIA Shield. So, none of this stuff is perfect. And the overall complexity, I think, of ripping a disc versus using something like a Kaleidescape, or even, we might touch on later, is just streaming something off of iTunes or, Apple TV or something like that. The complexity of ripping a disc is really high. Now, back in the day with like 1080p Blu-rays, I mean, we're talking about something, by comparison to 4K UHDs, in my opinion, just pretty simple and straightforward. You're not dealing with any type of HDR metadata. If you want to retain Dolby Vision, then now you have to worry about that. There's a lot of different variables, right, to ripping 4K UHD media. Versus, I mean, Blu-rays are still kind of difficult in certain aspects, especially if you're not very tech savvy. And that's definitely something where I know the Kaleidescape excels at is its user interface and everything is very user friendly. So if you're not tech savvy at all, it's, you know, you're going to know what to, you know, you're going to know how to buy movies. You're going to know how to play movies. So, you know, that's just something I've always had an issue with. And I like Plex. It's not that I don't like, that's mainly what I use. It's just, I have some external drives, connected. I have an SSD and then an 8 terabyte mechanical drive just for SD or SDR media and things like that, or kind of like an overflow where if I can't fit something on, what I have on my SSD, I normally play movies off of SSDs only because I found that through Plex, it's a little more smooth. Like the playback I run into less, not buffering issues, but, choppiness issues. Like sometimes Plex just freaks out and will start like kind of backing up as you're watching the movie every few frames and you're like, what's going on?
So, you don't run a server, you run drives right in a Shield and run that as the server and the client, or what's your setup?
Yeah. So basically, both drives are connected directly to the Shield. That is running the Plex movie server. So on any device in the house, I could actually watch those, watch that media in 4K and HDR over my local network. So that's all I'm running. I'm not doing, and I feel like this is kind of like that to me is like the entry point for most people. When they're just getting into this hobby, you know, they're not gonna, most people don't have the funds to go out and you know, afford like a big, you know, server, you know, but they can buy maybe a couple drives. You know, drives are fairly inexpensive now, for external drives, or they can just use your computer and you know, have that, you know, on 24/7. I'm not someone who uses the computer 24/7, so for me it's kind of a waste of energy just to leave it on, right? So
you know, it's funny, really quick, Brad, you were talking about most people who typically start out thinking they're going to do the ripping Blu-ray thing and set up a server and all of that, and I actually did too. When I first was planning my theater back in 2015, 2016, I actually built a fairly beefy PC at the time. It was a 1080 Ti with a i7-K CPU. And I think I put about 12 to 16 terabytes of storage in it too. So I was actually planning on doing it. And then when I actually sat down and started to do the research of what I needed to do in order to make it all work, I said, oh, heck no.
It's a lot of time. You're going to spend a lot of time, right? And
and you know, that goes back to the saying, you know, you can spend time to save money, or you can spend money to save time. And for me, spending my time doing that just really wasn't worthwhile for me. So that's when I started searching for other alternatives to make my experience with my theater seamless. And for a while, I was just standing, like I said, by my Blu-ray player, switching out Blu-rays and showing different scenes whenever I was demoing my theater, because I didn't want to do the whole ripping and setting up a server and all of that. But it's interesting that you say that, you know, typically folks start out thinking they're going to rip Blu-rays and realize all the work that's involved in it. And some of them say, you know what? Let me see if there's some other alternatives out there that I can actually use.
Oh, for sure. And I'm very much a tech head. You know, if anybody's watched the channel or any of my videos, you could pretty much get that idea from me. So I already knew about this all about this stuff anyway, because it's just stuff that I research on my own. This was way before I even thought about starting a YouTube channel and about home theater anyway. But so I was already kind of had my foot in the door with the whole like, well, how do I do this and how do I do that? So I'm someone who I know my way around technology. I feel pretty well. But even for me, the complexity sometimes, especially when we're starting to work with like HDR10 and Dolby Vision and trying to retain those, if you're doing a Blu-ray 4K UHD backup, that stuff can be really time consuming to research in how to actually like retain that information if that's important to you. For me, I don't want to have to keep ripping discs over and over again when, an update for Make MKV came out. Okay, now I got to re-rip this disc to get the Dolby Vision enhancement layer off of it, you know? So that level of complexity, I think, is something a lot of people don't maybe realize. I see it in comments a lot where, and just in forums, it's like, oh no, just, you know, rip your own disc. It's so easy. I was like,
Yeah,
for you,
but
yes,
it's
but
so understated.
someone like my, someone like my wife's not going to do that. She just wants to turn something on and enjoy it.
Yeah,
And most people, I don't want to say most people, but a lot of people just want that kind of convenience of just, okay, they'd rather just pop in the 4K disc, like Taurus was saying when he first got started and wanted to do Blu-ray backups, but ended up going, you know what, this is probably more trouble than it's worth, and it's going to take me so much time to do it that I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to mess with that.
yeah.
So let me look for alternatives.
I feel there's a ton of understatement in general out there on forums and other places about the pitfalls and complexities of going down the ripping route. And I'll concede that sometimes it's easy, right? You put the disc in, make MKV index as a disc, and you see one movie playlist, and you see one simple Atmos audio track, and there's one English subtitle. And yes, in those cases, right, within a minute, you can kind of click off. You still kind of have to know what you're clicking off, but you can click off the specific elements that you want to end up in that MKV, and you're good to go. But that's not the case all the time. Like what happens when you open that disc up and you have 4 playlists, 800, 801, 802, and 803.
Yep.
That's a Disney disc. Do you know that 800 is the English one? So it says Pixar Presents, not Pixar Presente, or Pixar, whatever it is in French and German and in Italian, right? The studios, they have different conventions, and then you've got discs with different, there's the theatrical, the director's cut. You got to figure them out by runtime. Which one are you going to take? And the subtitle thing is just like, it's so underestimated, I think, because you put a disc in, you got 6 English subtitle tracks. What are you going to do? Do you even want them? Are there forced ones in there? Do you know? So like the process that I've kind of laid out on the channel essentially involves ripping the entirety of that and loading that file right through another tool that shows you the entirety of all of the subtitles present in each one of those tracks. And then you've got to like look at them and be able to determine, okay, is this like, the apes signing in Planet of the Apes, or is this the the commentary track? It's all manual inspection and it's iteration in order to really make sure that you have the right thing, and then let alone other things like playlist obfuscation and similar challenges. So I contend about 15 minutes at least probably to rip a disc. By the time you load it, scan it, decrypt it, figure out what you're getting, walk away for 45 minutes, right? Take that part of the process out because you hit the go button. It's 45 minutes later that you actually have the first file. Then you interrogate that file, figure it out, adjust that file, name that file, and then get it up on your server. And you want to rip 100 movie library or 1,000 movie library, add that up.
Yeah. And so time is valuable. Now if you're doing a job at home that doesn't require much much thought, right, and you have another computer off to the side, then you can just kind of run through it, and just kind of how people have Netflix on in the background just as kind of noise. You can kind of get into a system, right? But some of the, like you said, some of these movies, like not every movie is just, not every 4K Blu-ray is just put it in, select this playlist and you're good to go. You have to manually go in and investigate things to make sure that you're getting what you want. And then you either have to transfer it to your server, either over your internet, or there's just a lot of variables. And again, that complexity is really what I think shies most people away from it, because it's not just a couple button clicks and you're done. It's like, okay, so for me, whenever I back up one of my 4K discs, even if I haven't seen the movie, I'll make sure that I have, because it's happened before where, like you said, you'll get a different, it's the wrong playlist. So you're like, oh, well, this is the French, it'll say Pixar Presidente or whatever it says, right? But then like sometimes the ending of the movie will get cut off. So like I'll go all the way to the end to make sure that I have the end credits, but there's a possibility I might spoil the ending for myself when I do that. And I don't know, like it's just something that I do. Normally I've gotten pretty good about it, but most of the time I make sure that it like the file, it works. And before I even transferred over to
Yep.
my one of my drives.
Yeah, you
And
gotta
it
test them.
seems like one of those things where once you get acclimated to doing it and you learn what you need to know in order to do it, the process gets a lot easier for
Oh yeah.
you as you go
Yeah,
through it.
you can
I
repeat.
think for
Yep.
those that actually take the time to do it and they rip enough Blu-rays and they understand what the process is and everything that's involved, I think for them it becomes a much more manageable process at that point.
Right. Right.
So I can understand it being, like I said,
Yeah.
some people really appreciating having that option.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, it's like that with most technology, right? I mean, I remember the first time I opened up Roomy Q Wizard and I was like, what is this? There is so much here. I remember when I was gonna, do the mini DSP stuff, and I was like, oh my, there is so much information. I need to learn all of this. Oh my, but now, you get into that routine, and I've done it so many times, like I do it in my sleep, mostly because of the tutorials that I made, because I did those things like 10 times before I actually like shot anything to make sure I had it. But yeah, as with it, as with anything, you kind of get into that routine and but still it can be a process. So
Yep.
to kind of switch gears, we were talking about setting up the Plex server or like just a whole movie server, ripping your own discs and stuff. How is something like a Kaleidescape setup? Either one of you. I don't know who to go to with this. I guess Taurus, I mean, did you have your Kaleidescape professionally installed and set
No,
up?
actually, I did it myself.
Okay.
The installation process was really, really simple. They make it really easy for you to know what it is you need to know, setting it up. So it just took me probably, once it was set up in the system, I'll say about maybe half an hour, 45 minutes or so, just to get things dialed in. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that I was green using the equipment and understanding the ecosystem. But once I did, it was a really, really simple process at that point. Watching movies and setting up your own, what they call demo scripts, which are just scenes from movies that you can utilize to demo your theater. And you can actually sit down with the people that you're actually demoing it for and enjoy their experience watching it as well, as opposed to, like I said, when I was doing the whole Blu-ray thing, standing at my Oppo Blu-ray player, switching disc and everything else. I really couldn't enjoy and see their faces and see the experience they were having, because I was so busy trying to make sure that I was setting up the right scene and ending it at the right point, and I had the next Blu-ray ready to go to to show them the next scene that I wanted them to demo. But Kaleidescape just makes it really, really easy to demo your theater and enjoy the experience as well.
I mean, that just already sounds like a much easier user experience than setting up everything yourself, with a Synology or Plex or something. Because there are always inevitably there's going to be issues somewhere. And Jeremy, I don't know if you've ever had issues setting up a home movie server, but I've had plenty of issues with Plex over the years.
Yeah, I've done it all. I built home theater PCs for that stuff, going back to Windows Media Center, dating myself a bit,
wow.
Plex, and now. Now I don't for my little setup and the stuff that I do actually consume off of the server. I don't actually use Plex. I have stuff on the Synology, and I'm an Apple ecosystem household, Macs, iPhone, iPad. So I gravitate to Infuse, which has a couple of its own technical limitations, different than Plex and Plex and an NVIDIA Shield as well. But I'm okay with that because of the ecosystem play.
Yeah. Do you lose out the lossless audio? Because that's the biggest thing for me.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
To me, that's the only thing, honestly, that I think that Infuse and using an Apple-based solution gives up to something like using a Shield or as a PD and Plex and all that is the fact that you can't. But there's a nuance there that I think some people get wrong as well, which is Infuse in an Apple TV will not bitstream audio. It will not bitstream lossless audio, right? So you don't get DTSX metadata information. You don't get Dolby Atmos metadata information. However, Infuse in the Apple TV will output lossless audio. It just caps out at 7.1. So if you play a Dolby Atmos encoded track, a ripped MKV on Infuse on an Apple TV, inside every Dolby Atmos, lossless Dolby Atmos package on a disc and in an MKV file is a like true HD audio core, and
Right.
Infused will decode the 7.1 audio core, output that as PCM, and you are retaining full quality bit for bit lossless audio. It's the same thing with DTSX. There's a DTS master audio 7.1 core to a DTSX package. So you lose the immersive metadata, but you don't lose the lossless. And I think a lot of people,
Yeah.
I read so much that, well, Apple doesn't do lossless. Well, it does. You get effectively lossless decoded audio output, but you don't get immersive audio
The
output,
spatial audio.
bitstream audio
Yeah,
output.
yeah. Object-based
Exactly.
stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I want to mention real quick for those watching, if you have a question, put a big Q before you ask the question, and I'll star it, and we'll kind of go through it at the end. Might go through some throughout the stream, but if you have a question, that's just so we can see it easily in the comment section. As people start commenting more, it's just an easy way for us to star it. So just wanted to throw that out there because I forgot to in the very beginning. Can you tell we do this all the time?
I'll back up to what Taurus mentioned about Kaleidescape. So it is a dealer sold and kind of supported product. You can also go to like Magnolia's and Best Buy and Audio Advice, right? So there are places where you can kind of buy a Kaleidescape and put it in. There really isn't much to installing a Kaleidescape, even if you have the disparate parts now, like they sell them. There's a Strato player, and there are Terra servers. They used to have a single integrated unit, but that has been end of life, and so you have to have any new Kaleidescape system is at least a two-piece system, one player plus one storage component. But you plug in HDMI, you plug in power, you plug in Ethernet. These things find each other. You access them via a web browser, right, to the IP address. There's some where like picture and audio and some special video settings and things are there. But everything pairs up. You activate it on your account. The player itself on screen has some like selectable options, things like parental controls and where do I want the subtitles to show up, simple stuff like that. But yeah, it's a commercial, it's a fully vetted, fully designed platform that's essentially, plug and play, and you don't have to have a complex dealer supported installation for a Kaleidescape.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't actually know that about Kaleidescape, that you could set it up yourself. I thought you had to have someone come in and do it all for you, but that's pretty cool.
Usually what's recommended for those that aren't necessarily enthusiasts in the hobby.
Gotcha.
But if you're working with someone, if you have a dealer that understands that you consider yourself a prosumer for the most part, they will allow you to set it up on your own. And if they need to provide any assistance, they'll definitely do that. But for me, I was more in tune to the home theater hobby than the person that was setting up my theater for the most part. And so when I purchased the Kaleidescape equipment, they were like, hey, take your toys and do what you need to do in order to get it set up. If you need anything from us, let us know, and we'll get that worked out for you. But the setup, once you have it, was so simple for the most part. Like I said, it took me half an hour to 45 minutes to, like Jeremy said, just run through, the process and figure out what was what, and figure out the whole IP address thing and how that all worked. And then once I had it down, that was the most time that I've ever spent doing anything when it comes to setting up or even maintaining my Kaleidescape. Everything has just been so seamless at that point.
I mean, yeah. So I always go back and forth with this because everybody's needs are different, and right, like everybody is kind of in a different part of their home theater journey, right? I think it's funny that or not funny. It's really cool that like my home theater costs maybe $10,000 to $12,000, right? And Jeremy's, are you guys okay talking about how much money you've invested in your theater, or you want to?
Yeah,
sure.
No,
okay.
I don't.
So Jeremy, how much would you say that you have invested in your theater at this point?
I think between both my zones, the living room setup with the 83 G2, and that's all Focal, Parasound, Anthem, and then the room I'm in right now, I'm pretty sure I've got over six figures if you add it up. Probably not well over, but cracking past.
Okay.
Cracking past 100K, counting all the equipment and the setup cost and installation, and because all of that. So
yeah. And Taurus, like what would you say?
Well, let
I
me
mean,
just say, you see these gray hairs? They weren't dyed. I'm an old guy.
you're not that old. Come on, man.
I'm,
You're
I'm
not that
pretty
old.
old, man. So I'm at a stage in my life where I just want to enjoy my hobbies for the most part uncompromised. So
Yeah.
when I set up my theater, we were able to splurge a little bit and put money into certain areas in order to make it more immersive and make it as cinematic as we possibly could. So I spent quite a bit. It's over six figures, as Jeremy stated. Probably a little bit, well, not high six figures, but I'll say maybe 150 to, somewhere around there. But I did some other things around the house. So I didn't actually put all of my resources into the theater, but enough of it went in there to make it a fantastic experience for the family and I to sit in there and just have a great time with whatever it is we're doing. One thing that I'm big on, as you both know, is I like to game in my theater. I'm a very big proponent of home theater gaming.
Mhm.
And that's why Brad and I became so friendly with one another, because to me, and everybody has their own opinions on it, but to me, there's no better experience than sitting in your own theater with as large a screen as you can possibly afford. For me, my screen is 165 inches wide, and you're just sitting in your theater seat, comfortable, and you're playing some of your favorite games, having a immersive and cinematic experience. So when it came to setting up my theater, that's what I kept in mind. And that's where I chose to put a lot of the resources and a lot of the funds while designing my theater. And I pretty much designed it on my own.
Yeah. I
Did have
remember
some help
you
setting
showed me
things
this.
up.
Yeah, showing me everything that you did, and I was like, "Well, you designed it? Wow!" Like I couldn't believe it. Like it was just not that you don't have that talent. It didn't dawn on me until you like started showing me the stuff. I was like,
Yeah, it,
"Oh,
it, it
okay."
was it was a year process, because at the time that we were building it, I was working out in Kuwait, and my wife was here, and she was basically taking care of the house because we were building at the time. And she would send me pictures of some things they were doing, and I'd have my designs. I pretty much did a kind of full blueprint in PowerPoint of how I wanted the theater set up and the game room and some
Yeah.
other things that we were doing. And she took my plans to them, and we would just communicate remotely, trying to get things worked out. But I didn't necessarily do it on my own. I did have a lot of help. And I got to say, the home theater community, there's no better community of enthusiasts than we home theater folks, because you can get a lot of help from individuals that have done it before. Everybody's willing to impart their knowledge to make your experience smoother than maybe they had. And so based on the communal experience that I was getting from the home theater community, AVS, and a couple of other places, I was able to design it fairly closely to being an in-game theater. There are a few things that I still want to do, but it's pretty close to being an in-game theater for me right now.
That's awesome, man. Like, I mean, I've seen your theater, not in person, but just through like video chatting and stuff like that. And yeah, I want to experience it one day myself. So whenever you want to fly me out to Texas,
Come on.
I'll go. Yeah,
As a
come
matter of
on.
fact, I've not done what Jeremy and I actually together, we did a video on my theater and we did a video on his as well.
Oh, that's
Yep.
right.
We'll,
That's right.
we'll
Yeah,
have
last year,
podcasts on each. And, the one thing that we've not done, Brad, is have done anything on your channel. We need to do something on your channel. Come do a tour of our theaters and put it on your channel.
I mean, yeah, I will. I'll reach out to some brands and see if they want to sponsor me. That way, I'll make some money. But yeah, that'd be super cool, man. I mean, I've talked about going to Texas and making a video on my channel, doing like a home theater tour of yours, because I've tried to remotely set up some stuff at Taurus's, and it didn't go well.
No.
Yeah, it's hard to do something remotely on a system that's that complex when I'm used to dealing with a receiver and subwoofers with nothing in between, right? So I know he's
And
running.
it didn't help. I wasn't able to contribute all that much with my technical prowess. So
Yeah, he was on the phone most of the time on Facebook. I'm just kidding. So yeah, so that I just want to give people some perspective on like where I'm at versus like where these guys are at, because these guys, in my opinion, both Jeremy and Taurus are in kind of a different league than I am. And that kind of leads me to the next point I want to talk about, which was cost associated with each, like the overall cost, right? So like I said, my theater costs $10,000 to $12,000 roughly. Now, from my understanding, the entry into Kaleidescape, which I think is probably people's biggest barrier, right?
Yep.
Is about the same, if not a little bit more than the entire cost of my home theater. So for me, like someone like me, in terms of my needs, it kind of doesn't make sense, right? To invest that much money when that money would be better spent, upgrading the receiver or upgrading speakers or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But like when you guys are talking about, these 6-figure home theaters, 100, 150K, it starts to make a little more sense, right? Because you've already had so much invested. If you want the best experience, this is kind of a high-end premium boutique product, would you say? Kaleidescape?
Yeah, it is. It's luxury. It's premium. Yeah. And you
And
got to
I want to
manage.
say that I'm sorry, Jeremy, please continue.
Go ahead. No, I'll go a little longer.
I'm just going to say that, and it's a premium product, but everybody doesn't necessarily have to have it.
Right.
Yes.
There are other ways that you can have a fantastic experience in your own theater without spending the money that is being asked for a Kaleidescape. And that's one thing that I want to put out there. You can have a great experience with an Apple TV. If you're into doing the DIY thing that we were talking about, that's one way to go about doing it. It's a premium product, but not everyone needs to have it in order to have a fantastic experience in their own space.
No. Right. Now, this hobby can be enjoyed at very many levels.
That's actually, go ahead. Sorry, Jeremy.
In whatever level you're at, right, you need there's a lot of elements to the hobby as well, right? If you go from nothing to a system, you need speakers, you need cables, you need processing, subwoofers, display device. You got to cut budgets up into a lot of different pieces. And so, I mean, you got to get into a decent amount of system level budget before it becomes reasonable to cut, an entry point of 10 grand off of that, to put a Kaleidescape in there. So just to kind of round out on the cost thing, because this is something that's really changed a lot, and particularly in like even the last year or two in the platform. Now it's unfortunate that the cost of entry for Kaleidescape has actually gone up. It's kind of gone the wrong way, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Back a couple of years ago, you could buy a 6 terabyte Strato S, which was the all-in-one player hard drive combination. And I think they were MSRPing that thing at like $59.99, $49.99.
It was like $6 about $6 or so.
Yep, somewhere in there.
$60?
So,
oh, nice.
Yeah. Buy and sell them all day on eBay. But now, now it's the server player only, right? So a Strato C player plus the smallest compact Tera, which is still 6 terabytes, is like on the order of $10,000 now.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So it's gone the other way in terms of broadening the base and kind of opening it up to people. The other thing one other thing I want to comment about, like if you're considering getting into the platform, keep in mind that the used market is an incredible way to do it. And if you look on ABS Forum Classifieds, if you go to kscapeownersforum.com and you look in the marketplace, there are generally always some small quantity of used hardware available, including still some of those older Strato S, single combined units, and that which can still be bought in that $5,000 range. So, you can find an entry point. Now, there's some considerable platform level differences having a Strato S versus the separates, the Tera and the Strato C.
Right.
But that's how I entered Kaleidescape at the end of 2018. I paid $2,500 for my first Strato prior to the S model, picking it up on what looked like a pretty nice unit, good condition, qualified seller. I bought it on eBay, and that was my first Kaleidescape. Now, since then, I've upgraded through a couple different levels of their hardware, but don't forget about the used market when it comes to some of these things.
That's fair. I mean, you bring up a very interesting point, because I never even considered that. Now, granted, I mean, $2,500 to $3,000 for a Kaleidescape is still probably
it's still
that money for me is probably better spent upgrading my speakers or receiver or something, and like we talked about, not everybody needs this. needs a Kaleidescape, or even not everybody needs a Plex server. I mean, that's what this whole stream is about. But some people are just fine using a disc, and putting it in their player, and that's fine too. It's whatever your needs are. There typically is a solution for you, right? And it just depends on how much money you're willing to invest in the hobby.
And one thing I want to add on that, Brad, is the one thing I love about this hobby and everybody in it is, as we stated earlier, there are different levels to the hobby. And just because somebody has spent a lot of money, more money than you, on your theater, doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have a high performance theater. You can have a fairly budgeted theater, but if you've designed it well, if you put certain things in place to make sure that you can get maximum performance out of it, then you don't necessarily have to spend the kind of money that a lot of other folks who seem to have more grand theaters do.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I love about your theater, Brad, is you've maximized the space and the equipment that you put in there to where you're getting a fantastic performance, an immersive performance out of all of the equipment and the space that you have there. And that's why I was so glued to YouTube when you were putting out your
the build series,
your series video, your build series. And those that haven't seen it, go watch it because it is fantastic and fun.
Thank you.
But yeah, so you have a very high performance theater, even though you claim you only spent a couple of grand here or there. It looks pretty nice.
Well, I appreciate that, and not to sidetrack the discussion here about Kaleidescape and all that stuff, but something I always try to tell people and to basically preach to people is like, look, you can improve what you already have if you don't have the money to buy new stuff, right? Like setup is extremely important. Calibration is extremely important. Proper positioning of your speakers can go a really long way in getting you better performance. So the thing is, all of these principles and things that you apply and learn over time also apply to when you upgrade down the road. Like say in 10 years, you buy new speakers that are, 5 times more performant than the ones you have. Well, those principles and everything still apply. So you're going to know you're getting the maximum performance out of it. And I'm just always telling people, you can do a few little tweaks here and there and improve your experience like exponentially. You don't need to go spend money on new speakers or buy, a ton of different subs or something like that. You just, work with what you have. And that just, I'm glad, Taurus, like you see that in all my videos. And that's really, we've actually had discussions about this. It's not that I'm not interested in really high end stuff. It's that, well, what can someone, spend on speakers and they get for, $3 to $4 grand instead of, $15,000, because let's face it, most people are probably going to be more comfortable spending that $3 to $4 grand than 15. Right. So that's where like, that's the stuff that kind of excites me, is that stuff right in there. But back to the big discussion at hand, the pros and cons of each, and we can kind of briefly go over this. We don't have to like sit here and talk for, hours on the pros and cons of each, but I kind of wrote some questions down that I feel like kind of answer, like I'm curious about some of this stuff, like what you guys think. Some of these will only apply to Jeremy because Taurus doesn't rip his own discs. So I'm sorry, Taurus, I'm not going to include you on these questions. But so Jeremy, what would you say is the biggest benefit of ripping your own discs?
So I would say, for me, and alluding to something I commented on earlier, I'm like an organizational person. I've always been like a bit of a collector. And so I like the aspect of, curating something. I think a lot of people, you're not going to set up a DIY physical media ripping solution if you weren't probably already something of a collector mentality, because generally speaking, you should be starting to build that system out from a collection of discs that you've bought, right? And so like any kind of library of something that you buy and maintain, right? Your books, your music, your movies, it says something about you. You chose to build that collection of stuff. You probably had your discs on shelves organized, a certain way, hands-on curating. And so the server, the Plex, the Infuse is like a digital manifestation of that makes it far more convenient to be able to just pull up and press play and skip the FBI warnings and skip the trailers and just get into your content and select it, all kind of at your fingertips. There's the pros of turning your physical shelved collection into something sitting on a server. I think that's the main pro of it, is the convenience and the accessibility factor. But for the whole umbrella of that, I think, to me, it speaks to me as being the collector and the access to the fact, there's just been so much released on physical media, and not everything is always in like a digital storefront or a Kaleidescape storefront. They don't have all the studios. They don't, so there might be certain content that only ever was available on a physical media release that,
Right.
you've got it and you can get it that way. So to me, that's kind of some of the poignant pros of that side.
I mean, that's like, pretty much agree on all of that. For me, I'm a very DIY type of person. I love, if I can do something myself, I'm going to do it. I always kind of use the car detailing analogy. Some people love detailing their cars. Other people hate it and pay someone else to do it. And some people just
Yeah.
never do it. For me, I'm that guy that details his own car. I actually do. I detail my own car. I basically build my own theaters, if you watch the build series. So I'm very hands-on, and I just love technology. So even though it's complicated, once I figure it out, I do actually enjoy the process of like taking a disc, converting it into an MKV, and then uploading it onto, my Plex server. And then when it works, it's great. But this brings me to the other thing, which is what's the biggest like downside to ripping your own discs is if you're doing the DIY route and you run into issues, how do you fix things if you don't if you run into those issues and you don't know? Well, you have to go to the internet, right? And Reddit can be a great place for useful information, but finding it within Reddit is like finding a needle in a haystack, right? It's like the Wild West, because everybody's going to post their opinion. So going to a place like AVS Forum can be very beneficial in that way, because it's a little bit easier. But I think that would be my biggest downside, is when you do run into those issues, even if it's something like, oh, my Plex server will constantly like drop frames sometimes, and the only way to fix it, I found, is to just reboot the shield. And even then, sometimes it'll get, a third of the way into the movie, it's dropping frames again. Or it'll like the shield will just become unresponsive. So there's always little issues that you end up having to fix yourself or figure out yourself. I mean, it's like building computers, right? Like if you've never built a computer and you build one and everything works, you're like, great. And then you build another one and you're like, oh crap, like it won't post. It won't boot up. What's going on? Now you have to like, okay, you're your own tech support, basically. And some people really are okay with that, and some people are not, And so that for me is the biggest like negative or knock against ripping your own discs. Would you have anything to add to that, Jeremy?
Yeah, I saw a few things. I think that the platform of doing the media server thing is kind of fraught with potential failure modes, right? Starting from the getting over the technicalities of getting the right contents off the disk. That's one. And nothing's more frustrating than having like a brand new, fresh, clean looking disk that fails to read, right?
Oh,
wipe it off, put it in. And you could just be totally, brand new disk out of a case might have a failure to read. And what are you going to do? Right? Take it back to the store, try and exchange it for another one, something like that. I think going like in a broader sense as well, one of the things that I don't think a lot of credence is given to in the DIY thing is like, and I don't want to get too much in this, I think it's almost a better topic for its own thing, but what is the future of physical media? And if looking back a little bit more than looking forward, we almost couldn't even rip 4K discs to begin with, right? When 4K discs first came out and AACS 2.0 copy protection came out, it was 8 months, maybe, I think, before the first, any DVD, the first software actually made those decryptable. And then a little while, and then there was a whole bunch of like ramp up, in order to even make those discs rippable. Then AACS 2.1 came out, right? And some of those discs are not even still fully or cleanly rippable today. Luckily, that didn't get very widely adopted. It's only whatever a certain subset of releases ever actually use that. But we're only like that whole part of the hobby is only an AACS copy protection revision away from just being done forevermore. And will there be another physical media format? And if it does come out, are you going to be able to continue ripping it? So I think there's like, and I'll just, put it out there, like there's a cloud over that whole thing
Yeah.
for the longevity of it. Like what is the real path going to be forward? Because there are very deliberate risk factors. I think if not for COVID, the way physical media was going pre-COVID, there was very, very much a diminishment of like releases and 4K announcements and all that. And I think in some ways, like COVID kind of saved physical media, because there wasn't as much new content coming out. The studios went back to the catalog, and I think we're in a bit of a disc resurgence. So a couple of years ago, I was really prognosticating the diminishment of physical media. Now I feel like we're in the pretty massive resurgence of it. But I still think there's still a long-term risk factor to it. And again, one copy protection revision away, because you can't put on your server what you can't rip. If you don't have the disk with the contents and you can't decrypt those contents to get them off, you're not going to rip it. And then, other things as well, like you set up a big old 8-bay, 12-bay server loaded up with terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of storage, spend 100 of hours, ripping 1,000 movies to it, and that thing gets taken out in a flood, fire, or surge. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Start over, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This is like a little anecdote I'll just throw in before we move on, because my heart breaks every time I remember this. So I was a big like HD DVD collector. You guys remember those?
Mm-hmm.
I still have my Xbox 360 add-on and everything. And I remember this was a few years ago. I'd bought a hard drive to back up everything. It was like a 2 terabyte hard drive. And I think I had about 40 or 50 HD DVD discs. Well, some of those didn't read because they had like disk rot or whatever, but I was able to back them all up to this hard drive. And like, I was like, oh, I'm going to set up a Plex server after I do this and it'll be good. I did it, unplugged the hard drive from my laptop, moved over, and then the hard drive fell off the table and died. Like, it was not readable. It just clicked when you plugged it in. So I was like, I'm not going to back these up anymore. Like, I should have made like, dual backups or whatever, but that is something that like still sticks with me. It's like, okay, if I'm going to do anything with Plex or backing up my media, the hard drives are going to be in a place where they rarely, if ever, move. Like, the only time they move is if I want to upgrade them, or if I'm moving rooms, or we move. That's the only time those things are getting moved. I'm very careful otherwise. Luckily with SSDs, that kind of thing, they're not, you don't want to drop them, but they're not a spinning disk. So you're less likely to run into that issue. But I just want to throw that out there because that was a painful day.
I just want to add, Brad, if you don't mind.
No, I do mind. If I did,
my apologies.
Just go ahead.
Apologies. There was a question actually in the comments, and it relates to what you were just stating about losing your hard drive there. And it's from Juan Hernandez.
Let me find it. I start it.
I'll ask it. Let me ask it of
what happens if
Jeremy.
your Kaleidescape is this right here?
That one there.
All right. Yep. So Juan asks, what happens if your Kaleidescape storage server fails and you lose all your downloaded movies? So,
Jeremy, what happens? Have you experienced this at all? Do you have an experience with it?
I mean, I know I can talk about what will happen. I have not had Kaleidescape hardware failures. Cross my fingers, knock on wood. Between the 2 Strato integrated players that I've had, I had a C in a larger Tera, and now I have a C in a compact Tera. Nothing's ever failed me, so I haven't had to deal with any troubles. But the thing about Kaleidescape is that it's not about the download. Like, your ownership is not the download per se. Your ownership is the digital rights that you maintain to what you buy with them in their store, right? So I own something on the order of 1,300 movies in my Kaleidescape store account. I have a 12 terabyte compact Tera that can hold about 200 pieces of content on it before it fills up. So I can download anything I want that I own in my account to my player whenever I want in about 10 minutes on a gigabit internet connection. So if the local stuff fails, the local copy goes up in smoke, right? You get hopefully you're under warranty, you get a replacement unit sent out, or if you have a larger Tera with a multi-drive thing, I think they can actually, replace drive for drive. You'd have to re-download what you might want to re-download, but you don't lose content. Your rights to everything that you have are maintained as a digital purchase in the store account.
And that was the one thing that appealed to me,
yeah.
is the fact that you'll always have access to any of the movies that you purchase on the store. So absolutely right. Kaleidescape has the capability of replacing hard drives. So I'm not exactly sure what the warranty is on the equipment.
5 years now, I think.
It's 5 years? Okay.
Yep.
But mine has been rock solid over the past couple of years. I've not had any issues at all. Yeah. It's just been smooth sailing. And I have the 18 terabyte Tera server. And so I'm able to store, I believe, anywhere from, say, 500 to 600 UHD Blu-ray movies. Maybe a little less than that. I can't recall exactly, but
yeah.
But right now I only have like 200 movies on my server right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the way that I do it is I don't actually purchase older movies. Usually I reserve space for some of the newer movies that are coming out that I want to own. If I've seen them before, or if I've owned them on 4K Blu-ray, then I don't always go back and purchase those. The only ones I typically purchase are the ones that I want to utilize for demo scripts, to demo for certain folks. But yeah, that's a great question, Juan. And Jeremy did a fantastic job of answering it.
Yeah, storage wise, you get about 100 movies per 6 terabytes.
Okay.
Roughly.
I mean, that obviously depends on yeah.
Every movie is a different size or whatever,
Yep.
but as a ballpark, 60 gigabytes for 4K movies, pretty on. So
awesome.
I'm looking at mine right now. I've got room for 31 more movies on mine, but when you don't have enough storage to maintain your entire library, and I'd love to have an 88 terabyte server.
Oh, that thing's
say download all. Although
I just found out how much that whole system would cost from one of the guys, Bill Lord. Shout out to Bill.
Oh yeah.
One of the Kaleidescape Facebook group administrators. Yeah, he was able to tell us how much the 88 terabyte server would cost, and I think it was like $85,000 or something like that.
Crazy.
Well, no. So that's for the totality. A single 88 terabyte Tera, not that it's cheap by any means, is like 25 grand, on the order of 25 grand. The 90,000 is what it would take you to buy and download every 4K title in the store.
Wow.
So you would need two 88 terabyte Teras to hold it all. And then the cost of all that content in the store, not 90K, is what, if you went from zero to everything.
Wow.
Yeah, that's quite an investment, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I love my hobby, but not that much.
Right. Yeah. I mean, wow. Imagine just having that just to throw around, like that kind of money.
Yeah. So you don't have to have local storage for all of your content, because your purchases live, and it's all infinitely re-downloadable. So you watch a movie, cycle content, delete it. And for somebody that wants to get into the platform and doesn't want to spend a lot on storage, because much as I do like the platform, I will say the storage prices are absurd. You don't have to pay crazy prices for lots of storage. If you've got good, reliable internet and a decent data cap, again, you can download a 4K movie in 10 minutes from the family all huddling around the web page or the iPad saying, this is what we want to watch tonight. And then if it's not already resident, you press download. And in my case anyway, then the kids go put their pajamas on, everybody hits the bathroom, we make a bowl of popcorn, the movie's ready by the time we get down to the theater.
That's actually something I didn't actually put it in the notes here, but will that fully saturate your connection speed? So Taurus and I have a gig connection. I'm not sure what you have.
I've got a gig.
Jeremy.
Yep.
Will it fully saturate that? Because I've noticed with certain services, mainly like Xbox and PlayStation, you're typically not going to get your maximum internet speed when you download from their servers.
So I just dropped probably about $500 or $600. My wife's not watching, on Kaleidescape movies in the store, between upgrading a bunch of 4K upgrade offers, and then the Black Friday holiday sale. I bought 39 movies.
Wow.
So I kicked off a bunch of downloads and my average utilization on a page worth of downloads here is about, they were serving content at about, I'd say 725 megabit average.
Okay,
So
so close.
so the download speed of these movies, I got Zack Snyder's Justice League downloaded in 22 minutes, but that's a huge, like double long movie. Thor Love and Thunder downloaded in 13, Moonfall 14, Matrix Resurrection 16, Lightyear 12 minutes. So
wow. I actually had a comment that says 10 minutes is pretty much what it takes to get past
yeah,
all
right.
the menus on a Blu-ray disc. Yeah, what I love is when you hit play on a Blu-ray disc or a 4K disc, and then you're greeted with like all the FBI warning crap. It's like, I bought the disc, man. I just paid $30 for this. So funny.
I want to say that I miss those days, but I really don't.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I remember when when Avatar came out on Blu-ray, there was no warnings on the disc. And James Cameron made a joke that, you know, when your movie makes over $1 billion, you can kind of tell them, hey, I don't want that on the disc, and they won't put it on there. I just thought that was funny. So, but moving on real quick, we got a couple more things I want to touch on. But I do want to say, Olympus E, we are reading the chat. We're getting through this, and then we're going to answer any questions. So again, if you have a question at all for any of us, put a big Q and then write your question out, and I'll star it, and we're going to go through them in a few minutes after we get through the rest of the stuff, and then we might kind of chit chat about just some random thoughts that we have on this stuff. Nothing really, you know, set in stone. We're just having a good time, conversating, talking about this hobby that we love so much. So, okay, so moving on, we talked about the biggest benefits and what I consider weaknesses, or what we consider weaknesses of ripping your own disc. But what would be the biggest benefit you would say, Taurus, of the Kaleidescape system? Like, what's the one shining feature that you just cannot live without?
Well, there are quite a few, but if I had to point it to one,
it's hard to narrow it down. Yeah, put you on the spot.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. It would be the premium rentals and purchases the same day of release as it's on digital. So when it's released digitally, we get the full uncompressed bit rate of audio and video. Absolutely love that feature. I went to see, well, actually, when Top Gun Maverick came out digitally, we were able to watch it on Kaleidescape the same day. And the physical release wasn't coming out until like 3 months later. I think it released digitally August the 23rd, and then it released on physical media October the 31st. So a full 3 months ahead of time, we were able to sit down and watch Top Gun Maverick a couple of months before it was actually going to be released on Blu-ray. And the same thing with Black Adam. I was actually surprised how soon Black Adam actually came out for digital release from its release in the theater, because it came out digitally November the 22nd, just recently, I think within the last week and a half or so. And it doesn't release on Blu-ray until January the 23rd. So we get a good couple of months between the digital release and the physical release. And that's the one thing that I truly enjoy most, as well as the demo scripts that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Those are fantastic features of it also.
That's pretty cool. I figured that would be the case. Like, as long as, I guess, Kaleidescape has the rights to release the movie at that point, right? Like, if the digital version comes out, you can buy it on Vudu or Apple TV, whatever. You could typically also get it through Kaleidescape, but you get unlike those services, you get like, you're not having to worry about, compression to fit, the video file down to a certain amount, or lossy audio. Like, you're getting the full, lossless audio track, and at least bit for bit identical to what's on the disc, if not a bit better for the video, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I've got
go ahead.
So I've got a video on my channel that I did a little while back, and I think I looked at 44 titles. The Kaleidescape download size versus the ripped MKV main movie size off of the physical disc. And I believe the Kaleidescape download outsized the physical media size by something like 10 or 15% or more in like 30 some of the 44 cases.
Oh, wow.
And then you have the outliers. Some of the outliers were like Avengers Endgame. That's the one that always gets cited. I think I actually discovered this a while back, and then now it's in all the marketing, and it's the one that everybody points to. But that thing's like 100+ gigabyte download on Kaleidescape, and they shoved that 3-hour movie onto a BD66, which means the disk rip is not quite, but close to half the file size, half the bit content. On K to disk. That one's the biggest shining example of a differential. But so yeah, generally speaking, you're easily meeting, in most cases you're exceeding, at least in terms of the file size. And file size is not always necessarily a proxy for quality. Say that very, very clearly, but more bits makes you better off, when all other things being equal. And all these systems nowadays use fundamentally similar, or if not the same, compression levels and compression schemas and all of that. So, but I don't. That's a virtue of the platform, but I don't hold that out there as like the end all be all. Don't spend $10,000 on a player because the file sizes are 10% bigger.
Right.
Can I just make one quick comment?
Sure.
I want to ask Jeremy if he did this, because this is what I did when I first bought my Kaleidescape, because it is one of the most expensive pieces that I have in my theater. And I wanted to be sure that it was worth the money that I was paying. When I first got it, and I own quite a few Blu-rays, so I was able to purchase some movies off of Kaleidescape, and I would pull out my Blu-rays, play the Blu-ray, find the exact scene in Kaleidescape, and see if I could tell the difference. See, because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, is this thing really worth what I'm paying? And sure enough, I couldn't tell the difference. Video wise, I think video is fairly comparable to what you get on a disc, but I think it's the audio where you hear more clarity in the file that's on Kaleidescape. But yeah, I went back and forth with probably a dozen Blu-rays and UK Blu-rays, comparing them to Kaleidescape, and just really trying to determine if it was worth what was being spent on it. And in the end, I settled on it, but they had to win me over first. I don't know if you had that experience.
I've done a lot of A/Bing between K and disc, and between disc and K, or streaming and K, and so on. So yeah, I've done those experiments a lot. I've shown them to friends and tinkered. I'd say in some respects they're hard, but in other respects, I think I have noticed some difference. I recently, actually, I went ahead and I marathoned the original like 1970s Planet of the Apes run, which none of that's available in 4K, right? So on Kaleidescape, it's HD downloads. On disc, it's regular Blu-rays. And to me, I jumped back and forth even between those films a little bit. And to me, there was like a clarity. It was a better image on the K than HD. So it applies not even just to 4K content too, but in a lot of cases, the HD downloads outsize a bit. But again, to me, that's not the cornerstone. Again, it's not, you don't make that monetary decision for, a potential delta
benefit.
Yeah. It's more about it's the access, it's the convenience, it's the elegance, and all that kind of stuff. We too had friends over, right, and watched Top Gun back in the summer. Bought it, download, fired up, and that easy. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. I do wonder, because Torsten and I have actually talked about this kind of ad nauseum at some points, about the audio differences, because technically on paper, at least, if the disc and Kaleidescape should sound identical, right? Like lossless is lossless on a disc in terms of audio, at least, not disregard the video completely, right? So it makes me wonder if I know they get the mezzanine files, Kaleidescape does. So are they doing their own lossless encoding of the signal? Because there's no way to get a PCM version of Dolby Atmos, right? Like it's all like if you're bit streaming Dolby Atmos, it's got to be encoded in Dolby Atmos. Like you can't send that information out through like PCM or something. So it just makes me, I'm curious, like if Jeremy, if you've heard any differences in terms of audio over the over like the standard 4K Blu-ray,
Yeah.
the 4K Blu-ray.
I would say any more A/B that I've done has been more about, between disc and K, has been more about the video side. Honestly,
Okay.
I don't think I've really done a hard A/B. I mean, they turn dials in their processing. I don't know all the bits and pieces of what goes on there. My understanding is they have more dials and more adjustments they do on the video side than the audio side between those.
Gotcha.
So I mean, the K or disc certainly outpaces streaming in terms of stage and quality and bit rate and all of that. But yeah, I think, but maybe they have some tunings that they are able to do on the audio side as well.
Yeah, I'm curious if it's like something, you know how like IMAX has their own thing that they do for, you know, their soundtracks and stuff. I wonder if Kaleidescape, because I remember talking to a few folks at Kaleidescape when I was at Cedia, and they have like I can't remember I think it's like their media content team or something. Like basically, it's people that literally just sit down and watch the movie, and if something's wrong, they like go, okay, no, that doesn't sound right, or that doesn't look right. So it's, for me, it's like, okay, well, how do I know what I'm getting is what the director intended? So that's a big thing for me, right? But I was just curious, like, how that process works. And they wouldn't tell me too much about it. They were like,
I'd love to blow that out, you know, go out there, visit on the channel and do something. That goes back to another kind of one of the virtues of the platform as well, where we're kind of talking about the pros, is the updates, right? So if a movie is released to the store and it has an anomaly or just has something that can be improved, it can be improved and it can be re-released to the store, and on your system, your mobile app, the web page, you get the indication that, hey, this movie has an update, audio video improvement, something might have been added, whatever, you know, and you can re-download it and you can get that fix or improvement pushed to you, which to me seems like more and more like physical media releases come out with errors. Like looking back over months or whatever last years, like a lot of discs get pressed with problems.
yeah,
And you can't fix a physical thing, you know, remotely or on site. If they release a disc with a problem, either they're not going to spend the money to recall it and fix the problem, and what you have is what you get, right? Or it's a disc replacement program, and now you got to send this thing in and they're going to send you the other one back. Like, to me, that's a tremendous virtue of the platform. That's a relatively new feature that only launched maybe a couple of years ago. I want to say a few years ago, in order to have the update platform and have the notifications that an update is available for a film that you have downloaded. And then, you know, if you don't keep all your content resident and they fix something in the store or improve something, you might never even know, because when you do download, you're always going to get the latest version that they have available of that piece of content.
See, I wasn't even aware of that. This is why we're doing a stream. Like, I had no idea that was a thing. That's similar to how, like, you know, Xbox and PlayStation do it, right? Like, if you have the game downloaded, the update gets pushed out and you download it. But if you're downloading a new, you know, the fresh game, like you don't have it installed, then you're going to get the latest version.
Right.
So that's super cool. I didn't even know that was a function of or a function they added to Kaleidescape. So
right under your account or in the mobile app, there's like a movie updates area.
I'm gonna have to have them send me a Kaleidescape. I was like, yes, please let me borrow this system that costs more than my whole home theater.
I'll get you connected to their marketing.
There you go. All right, so a couple more questions before we jump into the actual audience questions here. So we went over the biggest benefit or the greatest strength of the Kaleidescape. What would you say is the biggest weakness of the Kaleidescape platform? Taurus?
Entry into the ecosystem. I think the biggest thing is a lot of people can't engage in the platform because of how expensive it is initially to get into the ecosystem. But once you do, they give you every opportunity to purchase content at a discounted rate on sale. They have sales pretty much throughout the year. So you don't necessarily have to pay full price for movies that you'd like to eventually purchase. Like I want to purchase Black Adam. But right now, the big con, as you referenced, Brad, is Black Adam is $40 on Kaleidescape.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers. Oh, God, Warner Brothers.
And it's not worth $40. But when it rolls around on the sale, maybe in a couple of months or so, or maybe they'll do a President's Day sale or something like that, then maybe you can get it at a bit of a discounted rate.
Yeah.
But I think the premium prices on newer releases for certain studios is a big con. And Warner Brothers, as Jeremy stated, is one of those platforms, one of those studios.
Yeah. I think if you're Paramount, that's what she said. Yeah. I think though, yeah, $40 is extreme. I mean, I remember paying that for like Blu-rays back in the day when they first came out,
35, man. They were $35. They were
35, 40. There was some 40.
35.
I remember buying a couple that were 40 off of Amazon. I don't even remember which ones they were, honestly. I probably don't even have them anymore, but what I will say, and this is not in Kaleidescape's defense because I don't even have one, but if you had, if you have a theater like yours and you have a family of say like 4 to 5 people that you want to go take to the movies to see Black Adam, I mean, how much is that going to cost you versus the $40, and you get to watch the movie over and over again in the comfort of your own home?
Very true.
In a theater that probably, honestly, exceeds the quality and immersiveness of any of your local theaters, right?
Don't give them a pass, Brad. It sucks. We don't want to pay $40 for movies.
No, I don't think anybody should want to pay $40. Now, my question, my follow-up question to that, I guess, is once the actual 4K Blu-ray or physical release comes out, do those prices typically normalize, or do they stay at $40 until you, like you said, get it on a President's Day sale or whatever?
You want to take this, Jeremy?
Yeah, they'll come down. So Matrix Resurrections, Warner Brothers, it was hanging there at $40 from when it came out, and I just bought that Black Friday sale for $14.99. A lot of the new Warner stuff has been hitting at that $40 price point. I'm just trying to pull up the store real quick here and see, like the Batman, I think, was another $40 one.
It was. Dune was another. I purchased Dune the day of when it released on Kaleidescape digitally. So a lot of Warner titles you typically see. And as you stated also, Jeremy, Paramount, you see a lot of their content at higher prices too, premium prices.
Crazy.
Yeah. Disney, Sony, some of them are properly in the 20s, 20, $25.
Yeah. Usually I don't have an issue purchasing new Marvel movies per se. I actually have the whole Marvel collection. I'm sure you do too, Jeremy.
Yep.
And most of the movies that I purchased were purchased during a sale, like a Black Friday sale last year, or I purchased just a few movies this past year. I didn't do as many this year, but like they have regular enough sales to where you don't really feel the, the brunt of what they're charging when they initially released on the platform.
Yeah, patience is a virtue.
It is.
But you have the option then. So like, what if you really, 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 really wanted to see the Batman the day it came out? Well, then you make the decision, pay the $40. If you're content waiting, I think that was another one. A Black Friday sale was $15. So it didn't take long.
Video, can't beat it.
That's yeah. So Jeremy, what would you say would you consider the biggest weakness of the Kaleidescape?
Yeah, so I'll definitely concur for folks that are kind of on the outside. It's the entry point is a huge barrier. Once you're in, I'm actually going to go for 2 here. One is that they still have some room to expand the store collection. It's really fantastic. They have all of the major studios, but they're missing things like Criterion holds the rights to a lot of stuff, like the whole run of the older Godzilla stuff. They've got the new like Bruce Lee collection is so Criterion holds a lot. Kaleidescape doesn't have Criterion. There's very few of like those rights holders that have content that they can't get a hold of, but there are still holdouts out there like that. Overall, though, I think they have done a fantastic job with the store and expanding it and getting into anime, like and opening it up. And then the thing that I harp on all the time is the system is ripe for a user interface overhaul. It is ready for some engineering. It needs features. Some of the presentation, the scrolling, the movie cards, it's kind of dated. It hasn't been refreshed in a while. when we can download movies in 10 minutes, the system right now only shows you what you have downloaded. It's kind of built for the last generation when all of the content was always at home. And that's not the case anymore when you have bigger movie collections and smaller storage. So the movie wall needs to show you all of your movies and indicate to you which ones are locally downloaded at the moment and which ones are, in the cloud, and be able to trigger and do that. And because of not being able to see your entire movie collection, it limits other things. Like in the UI, you have the ability to make custom collections of films. Well, you can only make collections of movies that are downloaded. So if I wanted to make a Marvel collection and just have it be static with all of the Marvel movies throughout my account, I can't do it unless I always keep the Marvel movies downloaded to my server. That's whatever, 57 movies now. I don't want to necessarily burn up all my storage, always having every Marvel movie resident. And so there's stuff like that like we're ready. I'm chomping at the bit for like Kaleidescape UI 2.0. And I could go on for an hour on software features. You can tell I'm a software developer manager. No. But yeah, so that's what I want. That's what a lot of folks are clamoring for. We're on the TV, the way TV series and shows work, and they're really getting into TV shows now. You want to watch House of the Dragon and lossless 4K Dolby Atmos? Kaleidescape, it's there. It's been there for a few weeks or whatever. But like the TV series interface is really, really dated and terrible. So that's my pet peeve. That's what I harp on all the time, and I really, really want to see some engineering dollars and knowledge and design muscle put into the platform.
Awesome. Well, I had one more question, but I think we're just going to skip it. I was going to say, what are other options besides the Kaleidescape?
There really are none.
Yeah, I mean, you got stuff like Zapiti and things like that.
Well, that's a ripping. That's just a ripping player.
Exactly. So
Shield alternative.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to do like an all-encompassing, like ripping discs versus this. Like you have all these options for ripping discs, and then Kaleidescape. There's nothing really like Kaleidescape out there, which is why I think these conversations always kind of get heated in some forums and stuff, because you have people that want to justify their purchase, right? But also people that just kind of don't want to see the forest through the trees. Like they're like, this is the only thing, this is it. Like, why would you spend this money? And it's like, there are various reasons, and like you should never dog or rag on somebody's preference, right? Like, and I've talked to Taurus that, when I got to see Kaleidescape at CEDIA, I've never seen it really in a home theater outside of a theater I saw in Cape Coral earlier in the year. I was like, this is super cool. Like I saw a million clips of Top Gun Maverick at CEDIA. I was getting so sick of it at that point. I'm like, I haven't even seen the movie. That and The Greatest Showman. I'm like, just never want to hear that song again. But I was like, this is a really cool thing, and I like the people that I talked to at Kaleidescape. They were really knowledgeable. They weren't sales pitchy at all. We were just like literally had a 30-minute conversation with one of the girls there about the differences between Kaleidescape and Zapiti and Plex, or setting up your own server and stuff. And she was like, look, this isn't gonna be for everyone. We love everyone to have one, but it's just, and I was like, I basically said, well, it's not possible at the current entry point for price, and I don't have a Kaleidescape, but that is 100% why I don't, is like, I just cannot afford one. That is my biggest, if I can't talk about the pros and cons of it, obviously, because I don't have one, but if it was more affordable, I would definitely give it a shot, and affordable is subjective too, right? Like what is affordable for me might not be affordable for somebody else, or like what's affordable for you might not be affordable for somebody else. So,
and one thing I want to do before we close out, Brad, is I want to give a shout out to Brad Bjorquist, who was, I believe he was the Kaleidescape communications director for quite a few years during the whole COVID ordeal when that was going on. One thing about companies that communicate well with their customers is I will always be loyal to companies that are pro-consumer, which is one of the reasons why I'm a big Lumigen fan. Jim Peterson and his whole team over there, they communicate very regularly with their customer base and individuals that are interested in purchasing their product over on AVS Forum. And I've called him and spoken to him about a couple of things, and he worked out a specific issue I was having with something in my system working with the Lumigen. And Kaleidescape, when Brett was there, Brett was very, very good about communicating with Kaleidescape customers and expanding the brand. I think that's why Kaleidescape was able to build such a customer base, at least within the home theater enthusiast community during the whole COVID ordeal, because people were home, people were looking for things to do. And Brett was very responsive when people had questions and was very helpful when it came to understanding the system and the things that you could do with it. So shout out to Brett if you're listening, or if anybody knows him, let him know that, you know, he definitely gets high praise from me and a lot of the other folks that have the system due to his communication about how to use it and what it's all about.
That's awesome. Yeah, you know what? We might know the same guy, Taurus.
He was at City. If you went to that, did you go to that theater? I think he went to a theater. I saw him doing a show.
Yeah, he's the one that's actually working with Michael and me to do our California tour.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I never even put that
really,
together
really
until
cool
just now. That's crazy.
Yeah,
It's
he
a
wasn't
small
there.
world.
He wasn't there too long, but he's pretty prolific around the AV industry.
He's
the thing
moved
about
on.
the thing about K is like it's a small business. I don't know. I'd be curious to know. I don't know what the actual employee count is, but I do believe that the place is stocked with folks that, you know, are they're enthusiasts themselves. They're cinephiles. They're videophiles. They're movie fans, etc.
Yeah, I don't go on the Kaleidescape owners forum all that often, but I hear that's where they communicate a lot with their customer base and ask questions about the system and whatnot. So,
yep, yeah, there's a handful of folks from K that do regularly engage on Kscape owners forum. They had sometimes engaged on AVS, but they've been really quiet on AVS. AVS gets a little more contentious, unfortunately.
Awesome, guys. Awesome, guys. So we're gonna wrap up here. We're gonna actually answer some questions from you guys. So we're gonna try to do these rapid fire. I don't know how well that's gonna work with the three of us. Some of these I can't answer because I don't have a Kaleidescape. But if you do have a question within the next 10 minutes or so, put a big Q in the front of it, and we'll try to get to it by the end of the stream. But yeah, let's go ahead and kick it off here. So Hi-Fi Home Theater asks, what is the cheapest price of entry for a Kscape setup? What is the minimal needed to get going? So either Taurus or Jeremy can take this one here. Couldn't hear you, Taurus.
Oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
So right around 10 grand, right? It's the Strato C in a 6 terabyte compact Terra. Unless you go to the used market. If you go to the used market, you can still get in for 5, maybe 6 grand. Get a nice Strato S that's probably still under a few years of warranty, even potentially. But you know, and there are discounts. You know, certain dealers will discounts. If you don't have a place to buy a K, I would recommend, you know, don't necessarily just go to Magnolia or Best Buy. Go to somewhere like Audio Advice. Go to somewhere like Kscape Owners Forum and ask for a dealer contact there. And even actually, you know, I'll give a referral. My friend Dan DiCarlo here in Southeast Michigan, that's done a lot of work on my house, and I sourced a lot of equipment from, is a Kaleidescape dealer. So, you know, there's ways you don't have to pay full MSRP. So there's some deals and stuff to be had too. And there's usually a lot of promos as well. So keep an eye out if you're buying other theater gear, potentially, you know, maybe some more premium elements of home theater done, but they run a lot of marketing combos to get discounts and such with other equipment.
Gotcha. Awesome. Let's see, moving on. Chadman, PAC. Opinions on the best 4K Blu-ray UHD discs, movies for impressive audio tracks and picture quality. So this one's it's gonna be very subjective. I mean, I could kick it off with a couple that I know of or off the top of my head. So for me, any movie that is director's intent, like if it's the way it's supposed to look, That looks awesome to me. But one movie that I always go to, and it's been my go-to for a long time, just for the the overall like visceral experience of it, is Mad Max Fury Road. Doesn't have the most impressive picture quality because they used like, I think they use a lot of like GoPro cameras and stuff for certain scenes. So there's like some kind of softness and lack of detail in some scenes. But man, the Dolby Atmos mix is still just one of the most aggressive that I've ever heard. Another one is Blade Runner 2049. Even though, in my opinion, it's kind of not a great movie. There's one scene in particular, not the opening. You can use the opening like Taurus does to like test buzz and rattles in your theater. But that's not the most impressive part to me. It's the part where he crash lands in the desert, the deserted place. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, that whole sequence is some of my favorite. I mean, just the visual quality. That is another Denis Villeneuve movie, correct?
It is. Yes.
So like, I think he uses the same director of photography on that one as he does on Dune and Arrival. I could be wrong on that, but yeah, it has that same type of visual style. Although, unlike Arrival, that was mostly like underexposed the whole time, this was actually properly exposed. But those are some that I think are just excellent, like to kind of show off your theater from an audio visual standpoint. What about you guys? Kick it over to Jeremy.
So I've actually been out quite a lot in these last few weeks. There's been a bunch of home theater meetups and been to a variety of rooms. So I've been rolling kind of the same small set of demo material, getting to hear it in other spaces, like 4 or 5 other home theaters, and then coming back on mine. So, I mean, Ready Player One, Racine, obvious one, the Batman, Batmobile, freeway chase is kind of the one that everybody's playing now. John Wick nightclub scene, particularly when he pulls the second gun out, the hit of the second handgun on different systems is like crazy interesting. That I've been in some rooms lately where that thing sounds like a freaking cannon, and then in other cases it can sound more like a gun, because of how rooms are tuned and subwoofer arrays and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, those are some of the main ones. Video wise, I think we spent a lot of time looking at like 1917 and the stairway scene for shadow details and stuff like that, and the last Harry Potter, when they get the wand energy exploding together, that's like the HDR tone mapping test. So.
Oh yeah. Taurus, what about you?
For me, I'm just going to drop a few. My go-to scene is the Pacific Rim. I'm a really big Pacific Rim fan. One of my favorite kaiju movies of all time. I get teased about it a lot, but it's a fantastic movie. But my go-to scene is a scene where they're fighting, and he picks up the carrier ship, and he's fighting with the kaiju, and buildings are being knocked over, and there's a scene where the hand goes inside of the building and it stops right at the desk, and the sound on that is just phenomenal. Extremely cinematic and immersive. That's the first go-to that I have in my demo script, actually. The next one for me is I'm going to do another kaiju movie, Kong Skull Island. The opening scene. The opening scene is actually pretty cool for different sound effects, because you have the planes getting ready to fall out of the sky, and you can hear the planes just coming in from different speakers, and you can hear it getting ready to hit the ground, and there's just that woo, and then the big explosion at the end of it. But what really shocks people when they're sitting in the seat, when they're sitting in my theater and they haven't actually seen the movie in a while, or they've never seen it, it's the scene where Kong actually comes from over the cliff and he gives that big roar, and the sound is just reverberating all around the room. Just fantastic. But those are some of my favorite demo scenes.
That's awesome. I was actually I always forget to throw this out because it's a more recent addition to mine. But if you like have like people over, or like younger kids over, and you want something a little more family friendly, the first Goosebumps movie actually has a really cool scene where he kind of like crashes the car, and then this big like praying mantis like shows up, and that has some really awesome Atmos effects. I mean, the dynamics in that scene are really great because the camera like kind of starts like in the car as they're racing away, and like as it pans, you hear like them screaming like all around you, but then also, you know, all this stuff's going up, they're going on above you, and then it does have a really like tactile low end, if you have a capable enough system. But for me, it's always like, okay, what can I show people that don't mind violence, or you know, like the John Wick, you know, shotgun scene, John Wick Chapter 3. You know, if you want to feel that like in your chest, you know, you turn it up to reference, and blow your eardrums out. But I would always try to recommend that the Goosebumps whenever I can, just because I think it's often overlooked, and I don't think you can. I don't even think it's available on 4K. I think it's just Blu-ray, but the video quality is still fine.
Kaleidescape has them both on 4K.
Oh, again, I don't have one.
Come on, Dad.
You guys want to send me 10 grand?
There are other ways to make money. I'm just saying.
Let's keep this stream PG. Moving on. All right, Hamza asked, 6-figure home theater raises the value of your property. That's actually a good question. So
I haven't sold the house yet.
I would think that you know, investing, especially, you know, for someone like Taurus, definitely I think raises the property value of the house. Like I can't foresee you removing all of that stuff. Like that is, you know, if you're gonna build it, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a real estate agent, but I would assume.
You know, that's actually a pretty good question. I'll tell you this: when I built my house, I did a lot of other things too, because I have my game room, and we have over 105 Cat 6 drops throughout the house. If somebody bought my house, they would have to be an enthusiast of some sort themselves. Or some kind of software engineer, or you know, in a technology in some way, shape, or form, in order to get the full benefit of what my house can potentially do for them.
Right.
But property values in Texas have just been rising drastically over this last year, and I'm pretty sure that's happening a lot throughout the country too. But when we were building our house, I'll tell you this: when we were building our house, the builder wouldn't show our home to new interested parties who were looking to purchase in the community, because they didn't want them to think that they could do everything that we were doing. You know, but I'm hoping it does. But this is if this isn't this is probably going to be our last house. I think it'll be easier for me to make updates and do different things with the way that we have the house laid out now than trying to redo it in another space.
Gotcha.
So the foundation is laid for us to stay here for a while.
Awesome.
I think a home theater is kind of like a pool. It's like it either really appeals to somebody, or there's a lot of or there's indifference, and they might not really be interested in it. So
because it's a dedicated space, you know, and we have to do some reconfiguring in order to make it the way that they would want it, you know.
Very true. Very true. All right, moving on. Anthony Montgomery asks, Kscape would be part of the end game. That's not a question. Why did I start it? No, it's actually a statement that I think is very valid. That is, I do consider, I mean, I personally would consider something like a Kaleidescape like part of an end game home theater, for sure. You know, you've kind of got, you know, some decent money invested. I mean, you know, doesn't necessarily need to be 6 figures. But, you know, the closer you get to having really, really high-end stuff, I mean, you know, if you got a $20,000 projector, I don't know that, like, you know, that's a big expensive purchase, but I think that being able to also, I mean, you probably, if you can afford that, then you could probably afford a Kaleidescape.
And we all have to start somewhere.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't have to start at the top. Jeremy actually discussed it, and I think that's a really good way to get into the ecosystem is the used market.
Yep.
I know a couple of guys on the Facebook forums who have gone the used route and are just having a fantastic experience with their system. So you don't need to purchase new if you get to the point to where you're willing to spend a little bit more to get into the ecosystem. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Let's see. All Tech Geek asks, is there an option to rent a Kaleidescape? That might be a good startup idea. I don't think there is. No. But I don't know how that would work, honestly. There might be like some logistical issues.
if you just wanted to try it, your best bet would be to contact a dealer and see if they're willing to set you up with a demo, right? As a prospective customer,
Right.
you know, will they let you use it for a week and trial it or something like that? That's
Yeah, but I think that's a very good point, Jeremy, because the only way that you're going to know if it's something that you would really like to spend the money on is if you have it in your own space. Because seeing it at somebody else's home or seeing it in a demo room, that's not going to give you the perspective of how you'll feel about it in your own space. And I've had that conversation with Brad many times about a few different things, as a matter of fact, but just something to keep in mind.
Awesome. Moving on here. Lebowski. I think that's how you say it. Lebowski. I'm gonna say Lebowski because that's one of my favorite
There's
movies.
no W, Brad.
Doesn't Lebowski. I don't care. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna butcher someone's name. Can you install any brand hard drive model and size on the Kaleidescape? I think he's talking about the Kaleidescape. No, I think it's
Proprietary.
Yeah, proprietary.
Yeah.
So
there's been a lot of conjecture in discussion forums about, well, like, you know, if Kaleidescape would let me download movies to my own Synology or something, then I'd buy it. But no, it's a closed platform, and it's probably going to stay that way.
I deal with the same thing with some of the filmmaking equipment that I have. Specifically the Ninja Atomos or Atomos. I can't remember how you say it, but they it's technically just an SSD, like a 2.5-inch SSD that they put in their own enclosure, but they encrypt it in such a way that you can't just pop in any SSD. Like you have to buy their own, $200 or $300 one, and it's like ridiculous. I was like, come on, guys. So
yeah, we all know an 18 terabyte hard drive is $300. You can buy one on Amazon right now. It's
yeah. I think that could be a topic for a whole other video, a whole other live stream. It's just that, all the proprietary stuff. So let's see. All Tech Geek asked Brad, how far are you with the SVS PB3000 integration? I actually have them installed. I've been using them for about a week and a half, 2 weeks now. I've been just soloing those two. Like I have basically like a 4 sub setup. So I have 2 in the front of the room and then 2 near field right behind the seats. Because it's a small room, like kind of spreading them out, they sound okay, but you really get more tactile response with those I'm just a big fan of near field subs in general. But it's going really well. Just those 2 alone. I've been playing God of War pretty much nonstop, it feels like, and they sound fantastic. In this room, I mean, it's a small room. They're totally overkill for it, but they sound awesome. But I should be releasing a video of the unboxing and setup of those. I think this weekend. I think that should be coming out this weekend. So look for that. Very cool. So
one thing I want to. There's a comment here, Brad, that
sure.
I wanted to throw out there, and it's from Oprah Winfrey.
Oh.
And she or he states, if they made it more affordable, they would make more money. Speaking of Kaleidescape, I've asked that question myself, Oprah, quite a bit, because they would kill if they made their products more affordable for folks to get into the ecosystem. But they're trying to appeal to a more premium market. I understand that's their strategy, but if they ever did, they absolutely would kill. But very, very good comment.
Awesome. Yeah, I really think that the like I said, the price of entry is probably the most difficult for most people to swallow that price tag to get into the Kaleidescape ecosystem. Olympus, he says your wives are very understanding. Yes, they are. They are.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
It's like, you're not putting another dime into this theater. There's some things that I want to do, but I can't tell my wife just yet until it's time, because she does not want to hear it.
Yeah, my wife actually enjoys all of the free stuff that we get to review and check out. We have a Hisense TV right now that I'm reviewing, and it's cool to just be able to. She's like all into I married the right woman. That's all I can say. She's like, a free TV for a while, okay.
I married the right woman too, Brad, but I think
get to a point, right?
I think they have a limit. Yeah. Mine has probably reached hers.
Yeah, mine can take or leave most of this stuff, but that's good. It's all give and take. Everybody has their things.
True. Let's see. This is more of a statement here. Hamza says physical media could die if Apple launched an Apple TV Ultra or something with lossless video and audio through their store. I definitely agree with that. They're big enough. If that happens, I think a lot of people will jump, especially if they do that. They did that thing. I don't know if you guys remember a while ago. If you had bought something from the Apple Store in HD and a 4K version was available, you got the upgrade for free. Like, so you buy it once and like you get the upgrade. So that would be, I mean, yeah. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I know Jeremy just did a video on the new Apple TVs, didn't you, Jeremy?
Yeah, the 2022 model, and they haven't done anything to bump quality. It's a spec bump and a small form factor change and stuff. I think this is a great topic to really expand on the prognostication of like what could happen and what could happen next. But I will say that I agree with this statement. Yes, if any given Tuesday, Apple come out and say we are going to stream 100 megabit lossless or 100 megabit encoded video and lossless Dolby Atmos audio, my Kaleidescape is a very heavy paperweight.
I think it'll be a little while because actually every year when Apple does their events, I'm always listening and looking to see if they actually are going to do it, and they've not done it yet, but I'm assuming it's probably difficult to do with just a stream. They haven't gotten to the point to where through streaming we can have lossless at that stage. I do believe once maybe 5 gigs is maybe the standard in most homes, maybe then it'll be ready to be done. But I know certain parts of the country, they allow residents to have 10 gigs of speeds and 5 gig speeds. I know Jason, one of the guys on the podcast, shout out to Jason. What's happening, buddy?
What's up?
In his region, his ISP is offering 10 gigs of speed for broadband. And I was so jealous when he told me that. I was like, man, I wish I could get that here. But it's starting to be offered, but it'll be a while, I think, before streaming will provide lossless audio and video.
Every year since the first gen Apple TV 4K came out, I wait. Same way, WWDC in June. I'm pretty sure that's when they would announcement because it's going to be a content / tvOS kind of platform feature. And I've had the Kaleidescape since 2018. How many WWDCs is that? 4? Hasn't come yet. So how many more is it going to be? 2, 5, 10?
Yeah.
So the way I look at it, right, you can't buy technology for what it might do. And this is the ultimate failure mode of waiting around for what technology might do. This could be a decade away.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't bet against the internet, right? The internet is only going to get better covered and faster speeds. And I could take 100 megabit stream today on a gigabit connection we got really high data caps here. No problem if somebody offered it to me, but they're not doing it yet. And so, you get 30 megabit video roughly and 770 kilobit lossy compressed audio off of iTunes. And that's the best streaming that you get basically. Wow. So,
not, I mean, it's serviceable.
So we wait.
Yeah, we wait.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
For what it is, if you asked me 10, 15 years ago, where we'd be, I think that perspective alone is like, wow, what? You could watch pretty much any show or movie you want to.
Yeah.
Can I just say that really quick, that I actually go back and forth between my Kaleidescape and my Apple TV to watch rented movies. I don't always go to Kaleidescape to watch movies that I want to rent or, I don't purchase anything on Apple TV, but I usually do a lot of rentals there. I just rented the DC animated movie. What is it? I can't think of the name of it right now.
Yeah. Super Sons.
Super Sons or something like that. I just rented it just last night, and it was a fantastic experience streaming it on Apple TV. So Apple TV definitely has its place.
Yeah, I mean, I use it so I have the Shield that I use for all of the Plex stuff, but then the Apple TV for everything else. The experience for me streaming on streaming apps is so much better on the Apple TV with the auto refresh rate switching, and I don't have to fumble around with the remote trying to get it to work on the Shield. Shield has a major issue with, in my opinion, with outside of Plex with streaming apps matching that frame rate. So they still haven't figured it out.
At this point, nobody should feel that they're even really doing something less if you base your entire content consumption around an Apple TV and iTunes and streaming. It is really good. And I would even confess for myself, right? We buy these Kaleidescapes not because we need them, but because we can.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's a mental thing. And I would imagine in a lot of cases, many viewers, if you really put a K or a disc and a stream back to back, A to B, you properly level matched them, you might be surprised at in a blind test what your rate of accuracy might be.
Very
when you
true.
don't know.
Let me just say this. I watched Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power on Amazon through my Apple TV. And my gosh, I was super impressed by how crystal clear that image on that TV show was. When I started it, I sat in the back row of my theater because I was doing something on my iPad. And once I started the movie and really took a good look at what was on that screen, I moved to my front seat because typically I sit in my front seat if I want to be a little more immersed in what I'm doing. And I was just really, really amazed by how good that image looked. And the Atmos actually was pretty good too.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think it had Dolby Atmos. I don't know if I was upscaling it or.
No, it had
Atmos. It was native. Yeah.
It sounded really, really good.
Show, what? Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
One of the things I've been doing on the channel for the last couple months is really actually showing streaming bit rates. The Apple TV, if you're an Apple developer, gets you access to like a special developer debug mode and overlay. And so I've got a ton of videos on the channel showing movies, comparing movies streaming from 4 or 5 different services, and just how different some of the bit rates are. But anyway, long story short of it, I did one on Amazon a week or so ago, and I did Rings of Power was one of the shows that I did. That show, Amazon stepped up. Amazon streaming has traditionally been a little lackluster.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah, but that Rings of Power is the best, from a technical perspective, a bitrate perspective, the best Amazon has done yet, I think.
I never rent movies on Amazon for that reason, Jeremy, because they've always been known to have lackluster specs when it comes to their content. But they're getting better. They're getting absolutely much better because I don't think I've been that impressed with a TV show streaming than I was sitting there watching. And I watched it week to week. That's the one show, because if you know anything about the Fun Waste of Time on the show, we are not fans of week to week content. But I sat around, and every week when it came on, I had my little popcorn and my drink, and I was having a fantastic time. And what was fulfilling about it is it wasn't a half hour or 45-minute show. That show was an hour long or more every episode.
Yeah.
So it gave you a reason to sit down and watch it because it really did feel cinematic.
It
did. It felt more like you were watching a mini movie every week. I mean, I know people have issues with it, but yeah, I'll definitely agree. It was something that my wife and I made concessions on to watch it week to week, just to kind of have something to look forward to every Friday night. So that was a lot of fun. I really don't like it though, having to wait. I'd rather just give me the option to watch 2 or 3 episodes if I want. At one time.
One more before we go, since we're on Rings of Power, I have to say my daughter. So we read a lot in our household, and if you watch my videos, the entire back wall of our living room is books. So we do a lot of books, we do a lot of audiobooks. Anyway, so my wife is always doing a book with my son, doing one with my daughter. I'm doing one with my son, doing one with my daughter. And so I've been trying to take my daughter through stuff. And we did the audio book unabridged of Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. God, near like 30 hours or something obscene. I think I wrecked her for fantasy. It was hard. It was hard. We toughed it out. We made it through the book, but we were cranking it to like 1.5. And I read that book. I read all those novels a long time ago, probably even as a teenager, or maybe in my 20s. And like, I loved them, but as an audiobook, oh my gosh.
Put you to sleep. But Jeremy, that's the one thing about kids. When it comes to sci-fi, kids are visual beings. You need to sit her down and
watch the movie.
All 6
Yep.
Lord of the Rings movies. Maybe then she'll take to it a little more.
Yeah, we're gonna try again. We're not doing any more of the unabridged audiobooks.
Oh man!
Well,
All right,
don't listen to the Fun Ways of Time podcast because we'll definitely put her to sleep. So.
It's your soothing voice, Taurus. That's what it is.
I wish I had half your tone.
Brad's. I don't know if you guys have heard Brad's theater voice, his theater man voice. Would you give us a taste of the theater man voice, Brad?
I'll just okay.
In a world divided by fear.
That's all you guys get. Right?
The guy needs to be doing voiceovers.
I'm telling you.
Encourage him to start doing voiceovers.
Imagine trying to do that all day. I'm like, oh, need some honey citrus tea or something. All right, so we got a few more questions, then we'll end the stream here. Let's see. Juan asks, Juan Hernandez, thanks for joining us, by the way. Again, you're awesome. If Kay has the rights to distribute movies, what happens if a studio withdraws the rights for Kay to distribute as has happened with streaming services? Do you lose a movie from your collection?
I can comment on this because I got a couple cases I can cite. So far, I've only seen this happen once. There's 4 movies from a animation studio called Leica, Paranorman, Kubo, forget the Box Trolls, and another one. So those are a few films that have gone through some really screwy rights holdings in the last few years, and even on like iTunes, they've been like relaunched and other services. If you notice, for those films specifically, like the cover art changed and some remasters came. Now they're getting 4K versions. I think Shout Factory, the rights all changed and different people picked them up. So those films were in the store. They had to be delisted from the store. They came back very briefly with the new rights holder and the new covers, and then they've been down again. They haven't been back since. I own 3 of those 4 movies in my account, and I retained the ability to download and watch them in my account. I very much look forward to when they're coming back, because I think they're great movies, and I'd like to have the whole set on Kaleidescape, and hopefully Kay gets the 4K, the coming 4K versions as well. So I haven't had that's the one instance of that I've been able to observe firsthand on Kaleidescape, and my purchase has remained honored in my account. I did have one snafu in my time with Kaleidescape where 1986 Transformers animated movie was from Shout Factory. It was in the store on HD. The 4K Blu-ray of that came out, or the 4K release came out, and it came to digital platforms. That one I got kind of screwed over on. It disappeared. The movie got delisted as it made the HD to 4K transition, and I lost it from my account. And then it showed up in the store without any rights to me, and I rebought it. I could have contacted support and probably complained or whatever, but it was $10. That movie's like here for me, probably top 10 cinematic. Death of Optimus Prime like changed me forever as a 9-year-old. So whatever, I just paid the $10 and I bought it again. But that also happened to me at the same time on iTunes. So something really screwy happened with that one. But that's it. And I don't know really of any other folks in the user community and all the forums, places I talk about Kaleidescape, that have had rights problems in the platform. So broadening the question just really quick too, like if somebody like Disney said, hey, Kaleidescape, we're not going to do business with you anymore. I'd hope we would continue to have access to our Disney purchased movies. But quite honestly, if one of these major studios said, we're done, we're not going to do business, we're no longer listing our content with Kaleidescape, to me, I would not even care so much about everything I have, because going forward, then what does that mean, right? I want all of my stuff together. That goes into a broader question, I think, coming up about like what happens if Kaleidescape kind of goes out of business. And I've got some strong opinions on that as well. So the bottom line is, though, I don't fear this necessarily, because like it would be just catastrophic to the entire experience. If Kay lost a major studio, yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem bigger than the worry of whether I still have the movies in my account or not.
Taurus, anything to add?
I've not heard about this actually, or heard of anyone that has experienced that type of thing. So the fact that Jeremy has some experience with it, is really interesting to hear. But he does have over 1,300 movies, so he
Yeah.
has been around the block a little bit when it comes
Yeah.
to Kaleidescape and buying movies.
I got lucky. So I got lucky. I bought in a few months before Ultraviolet died. And so
And we'd be remiss, and you actually did just mention it, Jeremy, to not talk about the issue that Kaleidescape had a couple years ago, when they were on the verge of potentially going out of business. And I researched that heavily before I decided to invest in the Kaleidescape ecosystem. They're on stable ground. They're on stable footing. They're not going anywhere. One thing that made me continue to make the purchase after reading that was, even though, if I remember reading this correctly, even though you wouldn't be able to purchase more movies on the Kaleidescape platform, because if it did go out of business, my understanding is you would still have access to the movies that you purchased on the Kaleidescape store. You still have that box, that hardware that's downloaded on your system, so you would have access to it. At least that's what I remember reading. But that's not a concern of mine. It's really not a concern, because they're very stable. They're constantly putting out information about updates that are going on with the company, new people coming in, and some of the collaborations they're making with different companies and different products and that kind of thing. So that's not really a concern for me.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. The other thing I often say to that too is, like, if you're concerned about companies going out of business, well, get rid of your iPhones and your MacBooks and your iPads, because Apple almost went out of business too. Probably don't want to use their stuff, right? So
How dare you? No.
But yeah, I mean, the thing, this company's been in operation for
well over 20 years
now.
Yeah.
And they had a hiccup now several years ago, like mid-20 teens ish, I think that was. Yeah, I mean, this is as healthy as it gets. And going back to one of the other comments, like, there's, what else is out there? Like, they're a virtual monopoly.
Yeah.
In their space. You want to watch video content, you stream it, you buy a disc, or you buy a Kaleidescape. That there is nothing else. And so I think there's a lot of support, many interested parties that want to see them succeed and continue operations and thrive. And I think I'd like to see them do more business things. I'd like to see them do more technical things, all of that. But I don't fear for the company. The one thing about, if they do go out, though, like, ultimately, I think the store would go down. And I think fundamentally what you might get left with would be only what you've downloaded, because you don't have to have an online security check to play the stuff that you've downloaded. It's isolated. So, I could walk into my room, my rack right now, disconnect my internet, and play all of the downloaded movies just fine. It doesn't call home to authorize their playback and so on. So you'd be fine for whatever you downloaded. But to me, like, it's the same kind of, I answer that question too the same way. Like, if Kaleidescape went out of business, I'm just writing it off. Like, all of those movies that I bought in the platform, it'll be a very gut-wrenching
Big
moment.
write-off, though, Jeremy. I will say that.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, even if you could retain all of those, how and what are you going to do for the next big release, right? You're going to move to another platform. The bottom line, I think, ultimately, if K really went down hard, scorched earth, totally gone, you're going to move to another platform, and that's really kind of it. So,
and I think a lot of Kaleidescape owners feel that way.
Yeah.
Everybody's done their due diligence about where the company's standing, and wouldn't invest as much as you have to invest to get into this ecosystem if you weren't confident that the company was going to be around for a while. But it's still a good question nonetheless, and it was a concern for me, and I'm sure quite a few other Kaleidescape owners that were familiar with that situation.
Right.
Cool. All right, so we have just like 6 more questions here, and we'll wrap it up. So moving on, Rasiki Gomes? Rasiki, I can't read. Does Kaleidescape movies have theater level soundtracks beyond typical 7.1.4 Atmos? So I'll throw it to the one of the I can't even talk. One of these guys here, but what I will say is that the only company that I'm familiar with that hard codes Dolby Atmos soundtracks on 4K UHD discs is Disney. They limit the height channels to six, I believe, or four. I can't remember. They literally hard code those in there. That typically with like DTSX and Dolby Atmos. Those are all object based, so theoretically they should scale with whatever speaker configuration you have. I'm not sure about Kaleidescape though. It just depends, I guess, on what they get in that mezzanine file, right?
Yeah, I've never asked that question actually, and it's funny because I have that exact system with 6 subwoofers, so I've never really experienced anything but that. But yeah, I think you're right, Brad. I think that it's based on whatever system, whatever kind of system, and whatever kind of processing you have for your audio will be able to handle all of the objects and other things that are going on within the film. And I do believe it has a capability of exceeding that if you have the system for it. What do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, I don't know. To me, I only have a 714 system, so I've never really had much of a need to worry about wides and 6 overheads and what may or may not be getting, what information may or may not be getting to those speakers. So I don't know. I mean, they do Atmos, they do DTSX. If you're up mixing stuff, that's more. I guess my understanding is that's more of a audio processor thing, right? You need DTSX Pro to put sound in wides, or certain channels like that. But that's not from the source. That's the
receiver
processor, how it's expanding it.
Yeah. No, pretty much all of like Christopher Nolan's films are 5.1. I don't think any of them are even 7.1. He's not a fan of surround sound.
That's the same on Kaleidescape. They don't have that.
Yeah, so you're not going to get and that's his decision, and I don't agree with it, but whatever. All right, moving on. Enrique V asked how to fix audio out of sync issues in Plex. So if you're having audio sync issues, a couple of things could be happening. Plex recently released an update that broke .m2ts playback, which basically I have a bunch of Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision and HDR10 demos in that format from like, LG and all these other companies. And the sync is completely off on those with the audio. The only way I was able to fix that sync issue was to convert them to MKV, and that fixed everything. Otherwise, the audio was off by literally 15 to 20 seconds. Like, it was delayed. And I don't know what happened within Plex, but that is how I solved that issue. So even movies that I'd initially ripped in M2TS no longer worked properly. I had to basically grab that. I mean, it was long overdue anyway. I needed to convert those MKV anyway. I was testing out M2TS files on my Blu-ray player, which is why I was ripping those. But that would be my best guess, is you may have some M2TS files that you're watching, because it's not uncommon for people to just grab M2TS files off of certain discs, I've found. Even though it's like you kind of defeat the whole playlist purpose, and maybe only get half a movie, especially if it has like seamless branching, or if there's multiple versions of the movie on one disc. You may only get like the first 10 minutes of the movie on, or the first half an hour or an hour, and then you have to find the other like second part. So that might be what's happening. I've never run into other issues with audio sync, so unfortunately I don't know if I can help you with that. Let's see, let's move on here.
I like how honest Brad is. I can't help you with that. Just be upfront about it. I like that.
I mean, I'm not going to tell someone something that I don't know. So
I like that. Okay.
I'm just saying. Throw me under the bus, Taurus. No. Tom Dastrup asked, is there an example of a UHD that was released with issues? The one that comes to mind for me is the Mad Max anthology from Warner Brothers. There were some issues with those discs. It was actually pretty widespread or well known in the industry, I guess, at that time, because I think that they were saying at some point, like, we're not going to do anything about this, but then they backpedaled and were like, okay, we're going to replace the discs. Just give us your address, What about Jeremy? Do you have any recollection of anything that had issues?
So I made the comment about that earlier. That's based on I subscribe to a variety of physical media 4K handles on Twitter, and so my comment was a little bit anecdotal, just based on recollecting announcements about programs. But while that one came up while you were talking, I did a quick search, and there's a thread on BluRayForum.com in the 4K Blu-ray movie section that is titled as a list of UHDs with a disc replacement program. And if I just scroll through here really quick and name off some titles, you've got 12 Monkeys, 2001, Akira, the Alfred Hitchcock Classics Collection, Braveheart, Bumblebee, Cliffhanger, Columbia Classics, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, etc., etc., Grease, Mad Max Anthology, Scream, Tenet, and more. That's just what's in the first post of the thread.
Wow. Yeah. So that like it happens. I mean, there was stuff. I remember Saving Private Ryan on Blu-ray had an issue with the audio sync at near the end of the movie that I ended up having to go swap out and they fixed it like right away. Like it was so fast that within like a week they were just like return it to Best Buy. Like that was the official response from Paramount was just return it to Best Buy and swap it. Make sure the one you get has a yellow sticker on the back. And I was like, okay. And Best Buy was fully aware of it and they knew what to do. So I just walked in and that's it. But yeah, it's not uncommon. It can happen. And
in
like
the broad
you said,
scheme of the volume of releases, it may be a relatively small number, but kind of thing when it happens. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, let's see here. Hamza asks, on average, how much do you guys spend per month on the Kaleidescape store? I spend $0, but I don't know about these guys.
Well, I think between the two of us, Jeremy is spending a lot more than I do.
I just blew it out.
The 1,300 movie collection.
But I only purchase movies that I feel I want to keep in my collection. So luckily, Kaleidescape, over the past few years, came out with their rental program. They ran it as a beta a few years back, and it was successful, and they decided to roll it out to all of their customers. And you get a lot of movies that you can rent on the store. There are quite a few you can't, but there are quite a few that you can. So whenever I can, actually just rent a lot of my movies. It's got to be a big blockbuster or something I'm really attached to for me to want to purchase it. Like I said, Black Adam is one that I do want to get, but I don't think it's a $40 purchase. It needs to be cheaper in order for me to pick it up. But it's not really a monthly basis that I spend on the store. It's probably a quarter because every month I'm not buying new movies. I'm usually renting more than anything else. And when it comes to renting, like I said, I go back and forth between Kaleidescape and Apple TV. So if I don't necessarily feel that it's going to be a film that's worthy of the full theatrical experience, well, all movies to me are worth the full theatrical experience, but there are levels to it. So if it's a lower level movie that I just want to see, and I don't necessarily am expecting a whole bunch of things going on in my channels, I rent it from Apple TV and have a fantastic time and a fantastic experience watching it there. So it varies for me.
Yeah, for me, it varies as well. I'm a collector, obviously. I've been in and out of collecting various things, mostly out, but like the movie library to me, I view as a collection, that digital manifestation of that what used to be a physical media collection. So I tend to buy more. I rent very little. I like to complete movie series and have all the all this and that. But I tend to wait for sales. Like we mentioned, the sales and promotional element of Kaleidescape is something that has significantly improved, I'd say, in probably the last 18-ish months. And so every week there's new promotions. They usually run like Tuesday. They start on Tuesday and they end whatever Monday night. They're usually, it could be anywhere from a dozen movies to maybe a few dozen movies on sale. It's usually pretty topical, or it'll be a themed type of sale. Most of the time you'll get titles down to $9.99, $14.99, which is pretty nice cut from 25 or 30 bucks for a full price newer title. They also do a lot of bundles. as well. Bundles are part of the sale. So a
Did
movie
you get the
series
James
will.
Bond bundle that they did about a year ago?
I own all 25 James Bond movies
Oh,
on
geez.
K.
I bought
Yeah.
about 12. All of the Sean Connery and the Daniel Craig movies I bought, but didn't really feel the need for the others. But
Yeah.
that was a nice bundle. That was a very
Yep.
nice bundle.
Yeah, I had already bought those from the first sale. So they had come when MGM hit the store. I waited on them because they were whatever 25 bucks a piece, and then I think I got them at like $12.99,
Nice.
something on sale.
Awesome.
But some of the bundles, the movies go down to like $5.99. Halloween was crazy this year. I don't know if you bought much or if you're into horror films, but
Not a
like
big horror. I didn't really purchase anything during
He
Halloween.
gets scared a lot. Can't handle it.
Scared
Brad
easily.
and I talk a lot about the Mike Flanagan Netflix shows, and
Oh, they're amazing.
you know
I
we
love his.
we
I
go
love
back and
his
forth on the
work.
horror thing. At least I do.
Yeah.
But like Scream, Purge, the whole series, all 5 movies, $5.99 a piece if you bundled them all together and bought them. There's a snafu problem that I will complain about with bundles, which is if you can't add enough titles from the bundle, they don't discount. So for somebody like me that has like every other Batman movie, then they put out a Batman bundle. And if you can add 3 movies to the bundle, they're all $5.99. I could have got the Batman for $5.99, but the only Batman movie I don't own is the Batman. I can't hit the minimum quantity and I can't bundle it. So first world problems, but yeah. So I've waved that flag a lot, and some other owners have on the forums to say, hey, when we're bundling, can we get some credit for the stuff we already own to complete? You advertise the promotional bundle as like complete your collection, but I can't complete my collection because you won't, the things don't discount. But
Yeah.
but anybody getting in new, like the bundling stuff is pretty awesome. They just did a big TV series, HBO, seasons, buy the whole Sopranos thing for whatever it was, $10 a season.
Wow.
Anyway, I tend to wait for those. I look at what's on sale on any given week, and there's some really, really great members of the community on Kscape Owners Forum that maintain a thread called Movies on Sale. And I don't know what little software widget the guy wrote that data mines the stuff out and auto posts to the thread, but any price change in the store gets dumped into this thread, even price changes that might not be part of like the published sale. So yeah, you can catch some deals. So I don't know. I've got a really long answer to this real simple question, but I don't know. I might.
It's a complicated question, Jeremy.
Yeah, it is. It is. Nominally, might buy a few movies a month. Like I said, a lot of this year I've been kind of navigating back to considering where I was sourcing my content, thinking about ripping some more, but then kind of coming full circle in these last few weeks to say, no, I'm all the reasons that I got out of ripping in 2017 or 2018 hold true as a reason that I don't want to stay whole hog, or full bore into ripping in 2022. So the Black Friday sale hit and I bought all the stuff that had come out this year that I hadn't bought yet so that I could have it ready to watch. And then the other part of it too, one other like little pro tip as well for Kaleidescape is I only usually buy 4K stuff.
I do too.
I
There's
definitely
some that don't come in 4K though, that you have to
Yes.
buy HD if you want it. But
yeah, I never buy standard definition stuff on K, which is few and far between anyway. But the problem with it is like one of the virtues of the platform also works against it. The virtue of the platform being if you own something in the store in HD and it gets upgraded to 4K, more often than not, they give you a pretty nice digital offer to upgrade it. And for a decent quantity of the studios, that upgrade can be as cheap as like it's $4.92. It's the most screwiest price in the world. Why $4.92? But why not like just $5?
Yeah.
Not that I want to pay 8 cents more, but and anyway, so a lot of the studios will do that, but not all of them do. So sometimes like an HD to 4K upgrade, I've got a couple in my digital offers right now are like $17.79 or some other oddball number, but it's a lot more expensive. And so I don't now with the proliferation of 4K and with the mass quantity of titles being updated to 4K, it would take something very, very special for me to want to go ahead and spend money really anywhere buying something in HD nowadays, assuming that if it's halfway decent, it's probably going to become 4K or halfway popular, whatever.
Yeah.
It's probably going to become 4K on a short enough time horizon that I don't want to buy it twice on Kaleidescape, nor do I want to risk what the HD to 4K price upgrade might be. So
And
I tend to stick to 4K.
just to add to that, that's a fantastic benefit of Kaleidescape, I think. The fact that you don't have to go out and buy a whole separate DVD, or excuse me, UHD Blu-ray from the HD Blu-ray that you may already own.
Yep.
But speaking of that, another big benefit of Kaleidescape that we failed to mention was with their rentals.
Mm-hmm.
The one cool thing that I love about their rental program is if you rent a movie and you find out, you know what, that actually was really good, I want to add that to my collection. You can actually purchase the movie utilizing some of the funds that you paid for that rental.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually not the full price. You don't get like the full $7 or $8 that you paid for the rental, but you'll at least get about half of that.
Right.
If not just a little bit more that you can add on to purchasing the full movie on the platform. So they give you, once you're in the ecosystem, they give you ample opportunities to build your collection without it costing you an arm and a leg after you paid so much to get into the ecosystem.
Yep.
Super cool. Super cool. So we got a couple of questions left, and then we're going to wrap everything up. You guys kind of already went over this. I figure we could just cover it again real quick. Sigmund Judge asks, I'm sorry if I missed your take as I'm late to the convo. I'm interested in Kaleidescape, but I worry about the company's longevity compared to, say, Apple. Is the license you purchase perpetual? So either one of you could I think, Jeremy, you were talking about it most last. So if you want to touch on it real quick.
Yeah, whatever you've downloaded will continue to play. I've also, the thing I didn't comment on earlier too, the thing I've also long heard is that, the studios have great relationships with Kaleidescape. And so, you might hope or think or believe as well that if K went down hard, again, scorched earth, everything's getting shut down, whatever you owned and downloaded would continue to play. There's no phone home security check in order to play content. To me, there's no major value to that, because I would still be looking for, okay, what is the next platform that I'm going to watch my movies on going forward. But you could also probably hope that like the studios will make some kind of a deal, right? There'll be some kind of a concession. Maybe you'll get some other digital right on another storefront. Maybe they'll go to Apple, they'll go to Vudu, they'll cut a deal. You own those movies with Kaleidescape, but you kind of also own those movies with Kaleidescape a little closer to the studios. So it's hard to say, what might happen, but in that regard, but it's not, as we were talking earlier, it's not anything I fear. Tara saying about the same way.
Yeah, we were just saying that any recent Kaleidescape owner who purchased Kaleidescape after that whole ordeal, when there was a scare of them potentially going out of business, has done their due diligence and has determined that it is worth the investment. The company seems to be on really solid footing. This is how you know they're doing well. They just raised the price of the equipment as opposed to discounting.
Yeah. Much to the dismay of people who were maybe thinking of, maybe they're going to lower the price.
Yeah,
and I'll be able to get in at a little cheaper price. But
I'm telling you, but those that have purchased the system within the last few years since that has happened, we're feeling good about the company. That's not really an issue that we're concerned about. As for the license being perpetual, one thing that I stated earlier when we were having this discussion, I did read when I did my research about what would happen if Kaleidescape went out of business and you have their equipment and you purchase movies on the store. Why you wouldn't be able to purchase any more movies because the store more than likely would not be available to you, or you wouldn't be able to get any new equipment. What you've purchased, you own on that hard drive. So you can access that at any time. You would be able to maintain all of that. But very fair question. And like I said, we would have been remiss if we didn't get the opportunity to discuss it a bit. So really appreciate the question.
For sure. All right. So we actually got a last minute super chat in from Aussie Expat 2. Thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate it. Specific titles that are better on Kscape versus Blu-ray. So
in-game. Avengers
in-game. Just use the blanket statement in-game.
Because it's true. It is true.
It is true. It's true. I think, Jeremy, you talked about this a little earlier, and Taurus did as well, that visually, unless you're comparing them side by side, you may have a tough time differentiating between the two in like a blind test, right?
Yeah. Technically speaking, there's a video on my channel. It's called "Is Kaleidescape Better Than Physical Media?" I looked at 44 pieces of content
Holy cow.
from a technical perspective. And again, K outsized the physical media release by like 15% in 30 some.
Yeah.
I think of those instances. So check that video out. But yeah, and Endgame is the Endgame choice.
Endgame. Yeah, I think that's the one that most people go to. And that would be, even though I don't own a Kaleidescape, I think that they use it as a big selling point as well, because like you said, it is, you know, they fit that on a BD 66.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a 66 gigabyte disc pretty much versus the whatever 100 gigabyte, 111, something like that on the Kaleidescape.
Yeah, there are quite a few movies on Kaleidescape that have a much higher bit rate than the actual Blu-ray disc. But like Jeremy stated, it'd be difficult for you to discern what's what, because Blu-ray discs they were basically the reference standard prior to Kaleidescape coming around. So they still are a premium product of their own. But I think the one benefit to the question that you're asking is Kaleidescape better than Blu-ray? I'll tell you this, it's no worse than Blu-ray. And you're getting a whole bunch of other benefits and features to go along with that, such as the digital day of digital release, as opposed to having to wait months for the physical Blu-ray to come around. You already own it, and you have the lossless audio and video months ahead of time. So that, as well as quite a few other features that Jeremy and I didn't even really get the opportunity to discuss. The metadata when it comes to the lights and, being able to control everything, just as if you're in your own private commercial cinema. There are a lot of really cool features that the system has that make it worth the purchase if you're willing to go that route and spend that money.
Absolutely.
My system, based on the aspect ratio metadata from per movie per Kaleidescape, my projector zooms itself to the right aspect ratio modes with Control 4. As soon as the credits hit in the film, the lights come up nice and slow.
Pause it, they come up, and you start it again, they go out. And those are things you can do with other control systems. That's not really proprietary to Kaleidescape, but Kaleidescape just makes it so much easier.
Yeah, it's integrated. You can't do that with an app, like streaming a movie from an Apple TV. There's no control cues to detect and trigger those things. The other thing too is, like, I don't know, Taurus, if you use it, but the mobile app, I think they have the best mobile app amongst all these companies.
They do. And what I like about the mobile app more than anything else is, especially when I'm at home on my own system, being able to go to the IP settings and play around in there and see how long my movies are taking to download. The one thing I will say about Kaleidescape that could be a con is it takes forever for your movie to download if you're actually watching a Kaleidescape movie, or if you're actually sitting down and you're in your theater and you actually have the system working. It can take triple the time for a movie to download.
Wow.
Yeah, usually you want to be off of the Kaleidescape system, let the movie download, and then that's usually 10 to 15 minutes, depending upon what type of system you have. Could be 30 if you have a traditional Strato S, the 1 unit. But if you're off the system, it's a really, really quick download. But if you're on it watching a movie, and then you want to have another movie loaded up right after you finish watching the one that you're currently watching, it may take a while for it to download even after you finish that movie. So just make sure that if you want to download and watch something after you finish watching a movie, finish your movie, purchase and download the Kaleidescape movie, or download it if you already own it, then come back and watch that movie.
You said you had an
download while you're watching.
You said you had an 18. Do you have a Strato 18, or you have a separate Terra 18?
I've got a separate Terra. I've got the Terra Terra 18 gig terabyte.
18 gigaterabyte.
18 gigaterabyte, Brad.
Making up words.
We've only been live streaming for 2.5 hours.
Yeah. So one last question here. I promise, guys, and then we're gonna wrap it up.
No worries. I'm having a fantastic time. It's great to hang out with Jeremy again. It's been a long time.
You kicked off my whole social media endeavor. That
Yeah,
podcast was the start of everything last year.
it was, man. We had such a fantastic time. And before then, Jeremy had never really done any YouTube videos. And after that, we were talking after we did that video. And he was saying that, he really wants to, get on the platform and start doing things. And boy, oh boy, did he ever.
Yeah, he
It's worked
went.
out pretty good.
Yeah,
Some
he went.
fantastic things, Jeremy.
He
I'm
went
proud
like
of both you and Brad.
oh,
Brad actually has been doing some awesome things as well, putting out some
you're
fantastic content. So
just trying, man, living the dream, as people say.
The stream's not getting bored. We're only
No.
picking up
Right?
viewers as we go here.
I know. How much longer? So a last question here, guys. And we're gonna wrap it up. And I'll take this one here. So Julius R asks, I've had the free version of Plex for years, and so far it's serving my needs, but I am also looking at the Zdo. Is it worth getting the paid version of Plex? In my opinion, and this is just based on like my needs, I've used the free version. I did purchase, I can't even remember. I don't even know if you could purchase it anymore. The ability to play back content on your iPad or iPhone, which is just like a one-time license. I think I paid $5 and I can use it on an iPhone and iPad. Other than that, paying for Plex itself, the only benefit that I really personally could see is if you're trying to play back or need their HDR to SDR tone mapping function or feature. Because otherwise, if you try to play back, like say like a Dolby Vision movie or an HDR10 movie on a device that only supports standard dynamic range, you'll get met with a message that says you can't play back this file, or if you do, it'll have some weird, the colors won't look right because it's not doing any conversion. If you've ever actually seen screenshots or footage of a movie that you play back on a standard dynamic range, or you play a movie like that is not tone mapped properly to SDR, it can look like purple. It'll have like weird purple or green or, depending on the movie. Dolby Vision, I know purple and green are like the colors that you see on like still screenshots sometimes because they haven't been tone mapped back to SDR. They haven't taken that metadata and converted it. So that would be my only kind of thing that I would recommend, is if you need that tone mapping feature, then yeah, you may want to pay for it. But most of the time, if it's meeting your needs and you don't have a need for that, just use a free version. That's my opinion. So
It wasn't, if I tack something onto that, just because we talked about it a little bit too, on the Infuse side, if you're using Infuse, pay for it.
Yeah,
there's a pretty good stack of features behind the Infuse paywall. The lossless audio decoding, I believe, is part of the paywall, the iCloud syncing and all that stuff. And I'll go from the other tack as a person that's on a 20+ year career developing software. Buy the paid version. Pay the developers.
Very cool. I mean, yeah. So there you go. You got two, opposing. I don't want to say opposing. I'm not.
Well, I mean, it's not a bad thing.
Side,
it's not a bad thing to use the free version. They make it free for a reason.
Yeah, but I've always been I've always kind of been a fan of like, if you really enjoy something and you could afford to pay for it, even if it has features you never, need, like a hockey player in the comments mentioned that the paid Plex gives you a DVR functionality, which I wasn't even aware of. So if you need that, or like, even if you get it and you maybe only use it once in a while or whatever, but you're supporting this company that you really like to stand behind, and they've, provided you a good product and good service and stuff, similar to like how you guys were talking about the Kaleidescape experience, then support them if you can, definitely.
Make MKV is another one. If you are going to go the ripping route, you're going to go MKVs. Make MKV is like the gold standard piece of software.
Yep.
And it's free, but you can, you don't unlock anything new, but it's $50. If you're going to rip 100 discs, hundreds of discs, thousands of discs, and make a whole system around it, throw them the $50.
Yeah, it's one of the only ripping software that allows you to fold down the Dolby enhancement layer into a single layer instead of because most discs have like the HDR10 layer, and then on top of that it's the Dolby Vision enhancement layer. It's normally like a 1080p just kind of like overlay, but it tells the display, okay, here are the primaries, here's like the maximum peak luminance of the display, all that stuff, but it folds it down into a single layer, similar to how things are streamed over, Netflix or Apple TV. And that's only so Plex can actually read that Dolby Vision file. Otherwise, Plex doesn't support reading that the reading of that second Dolby Vision enhancement layer. So yeah, it'll just play back in HDR10, but that's a way to kind of fold it down. So if you have a lot of Dolby Vision discs and want to retain Dolby Vision, yeah, I would say I bought Make MKV a long time ago, and it's well worth it if you're going to start, getting into disc ripping and stuff. But yeah, guys, we've been going for almost 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah,
So you want to add something?
Yeah, I got one more. Sorry. There was like in the last little run here, there was a bunch of comments about Movies Anywhere and Kaleidescape, and I think that's a really important, but we'll call it the bookend to the Kaleidescape conversation. Yeah. Back in the day, Kaleidescape was part of Ultraviolet, and like I mentioned, I bought into the platform with a whole bunch of titles in my UV library, and poured it in before UV went down. I think I had a lot of hope to find Kaleidescape be a Movies Anywhere member. I think in general, I had a lot of hope over the years for that Movies Anywhere would really turn into something super special. And unfortunately, neither one has super really come to pass. Kaleidescape has not joined or been able to join. The jury's out on where the blocker has been historically for that, whether they wanted in or they couldn't get in. I can't tell you how many times I've sent feedback to Movies Anywhere over the years, probably hundreds, literally, saying please onboard Kaleidescape. And I think the answer in some cases has been, well, they're working through other partners and yada yada. But so we don't know where the real blocker is. If it's a business decision on case side. I
remember hearing something about that, Jeremy. I think it's a studio issue.
Yeah,
I think the studios had an issue with not collecting that revenue from that additional platform. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you're paying on Kaleidescape, and then you're getting it free on Vudu or whatever it is, the platform that's associated with it. If I remember correctly, I do remember reading something like that. That might have been the
so
issue.
They're not there. It's probably a lost cause at this point, but at the same time, like Movies Anywhere has floundered, I would say. Like Paramount, Lionsgate, some of these other studios never have, nobody's joined Movies Anywhere since the original, whatever it was, 5 studios that founded it. So, I would love it if the press release ever came that Kaleidescape is part of Movies Anywhere, I would dance a jig and ascend into the heavens, because, and I would love to be able to merge my iTunes and my K libraries and the rights between them.
Would you do like a little YouTube short of you dancing that jig? I would watch it.
The heavens would
only
part.
Need a 20-second clip, Jeremy. Just a 20-second clip, buddy.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be 20. Just a little 10-second.
It's coming. I will guarantee that video.
Coming.
Hey, that's everybody. Make sure that the next time you see Jeremy on his live stream, ask him where's that jig. You're waiting for that jig.
Movies Anywhere.
Yeah, if it happens, there you go. All right, well, we're gonna wrap it up here, guys. You guys, Taurus, you have anything else you want to add?
No, I've had a fantastic time, man. Like I said, it's great hanging out with you guys again. It's been so long, and I'm so happy to see that you guys are doing well and prospering, and can't wait to get the opportunity to do this with you again in the future.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's been really cool, like hanging out. Like we normally do the podcast, and we haven't done that in a while, but it's always just audio only. We're just using the video chat to kind of make fun of each other's appearances most of the time, right?
They like to make fun of me, guys, because they call me an old guy because I tuck my shirt into my sweats.
At home, I mean,
at home, I'm old.
I'm just saying,
gray isn't died. I'm an old guy.
But no, it's really great having you.
Ronald Reagan. I sent them a picture of Ronald Reagan in a button-down shirt and a tie, with his shirt tucked in his sweatpants, and his sweatpants were all the way up to his navel. If it's good enough for Ronald Reagan, it's good enough for me. Okay.
I just like how you compared yourself to Ronald Reagan in a way.
That's the only similarity that we have.
Only similarity. Well, okay. But yeah, thank you so much for joining. It was great having you, Taurus, on the live stream. We'll definitely do this again. Jeremy, anything else you want to add before we sign off here?
Yeah. So thanks a lot, guys. I would say look for more collabs coming up. Brad and I were chatting about this in the background a little bit, and then like, hey, well, I'll call you. Let's have a conversation about it. And I think we chatted for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we have a lot of things that we want to talk about together coming up. So, hopefully, and we'll do this kind of multicast, simulcast thing,
Absolutely.
and yeah, so have a lot of fun there. I'll tease one other thing that I was planning. So my goal for Techthusiasm, my plan for Techthusiasm is to keep live streaming Wednesday night, and we'll weave in with Brad some of those weeks and other folks in other weeks. But since there's so much interest in Kaleidescape, and I've really tried to make like Techthusiasm be like the focal point of YouTube for Kaleidescape, because I think there's so much just misunderstanding, in some cases misrepresentation, and all of that. So if you want more information on K, check out the channel. There's specifically a playlist of all the K videos. I have videos on the settings, on integration of the home theater, the mobile apps, how everything works, demonstrations, all of that. And I will probably do, I'm thinking actually maybe even next week, when the new Apple TV came out a couple weeks ago, I did the live stream where I showed my screen, and I set my Apple TV up and went over all the configurations. I think I want to kind of do that again, but with the K, and actually have it up on the screen, and let's really kind of talk functional questions about Kaleidescape and how it works. We did a lot of verbalization today, which is awesome, but I think we can do some demonstration on a future live stream as well. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I hope that this becomes like a bi-weekly thing. That's what we were kind of, Jeremy and I talked about and shooting for. So look for that. It might be kind of sporadic as we get started, just, scheduling and all that fun stuff. It's always fun. I do enjoy live streaming. I love connecting with everybody. My videos coming out in the future here. I got a bunch of reviews. I actually had to make a Trello list of all the things that I have to work on, because I started to lose track. But yeah, we got a Hisense U7H review, the 85-inch coming, the SVS PB3000s. I'm still working on that. The Purion Audio Clear 6Cs. So a bunch of all the review stuff, but that's in addition to the stuff I actually want to do, which is really get into how to read, the room decay stuff in REW, so you could, maybe make your own acoustic panels and get some better audio in your room, but just some other stuff as well. I thought about doing a live stream, real-time display calibration on my LG C1 using CalMan, which one mode takes about an hour. So I figure that's like kind of a perfect, live stream, opportunity to kind of connect and answer questions. I'm not a professional calibrator or anything. I'm an enthusiast. So that might be something I do. I might do a separate video first on that. But it'd be cool to maybe get a professional calibrator in the live stream. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But again, thank you everyone for joining. Like Jeremy was saying, we started peaking as we were about to close at like 67, 70 people in here, which is crazy. But thanks so much for joining. And yeah, look for our next live stream coming soon. Make sure you're subscribed to Jeremy's channel, Techthusiasm, if you're watching from my Home Theater Gamer channel. And then if you're not, and vice versa, if you're not subscribed to Home Theater Gamer, hit that subscribe button. And yeah, thank you guys again for joining, and we will catch you in the next one.